reflective of maybe the SDGs,
Video of
social impact,
yes.
growth.
Yeah, so that's and those are harder to track.
Yeah,
Um, but the first place you always start is which of the SD to which goal are you trying to meet? When you identify what those goals are, then you
yeah,
know what you are doing as a business to, you know, to meet those goals. So for instance, if it's an um, an edtech company trying to increase all the number of children in school or increase the number of people that have access to education. The number of people that use that tool is your goal, and that is already tied to quality education, which is one of the SDGs. So you are
right.
tracking based on what you're doing, also based on what the SDG is saying. So those are your social impact metrics. It could um is it clean energy? How many what kind of tools are you providing? How many households have you impacted? You know, is there carbon emission? Are you reducing carbon emission? Are you saving water if it's water that you're trying to work with? Are you providing sustainable agricultural um solutions for smallholder farmers, which we have across Africa? Who are the number of the farmers you have impacted, uh, the locations this has happened. So those are your impact metrics, but it must be tied
Mm,
to any of the SDGs.
excellent. Now we've tracked. Okay, so we've collected the data, we've tracked. Now, what do you do with the data? Communication, right?
Your Another thing that we about impact entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship is that most of these things or goals cannot be met alone. So for you to grow, for you to create the kind of need to partner with government, you're partnering with NGOs, government, because and you know this conversation change. So then that's a bigger impact where something is changed by the government because of the kind of work you're doing. You could be partnering with NGOs, and NGOs are helping you because they are you can partner with the community themselves, the users themselves, because they know the problem most of than you. So the way to partner with these people is communicating what you're doing, communicating, telling stories around the work you're doing, um, trying to, you know, let the impact and the importance of that work. And that's where people who would want to, you know, like the government might be interested to partner with you because they have seen evidence of what you're doing. And that's only through data.
Yeah,
Also,
absolutely, yes.
if we are going to get, yes, if we are going to get funding, impact investors are looking as well. Um, I think anyone interested in this can look at the impact reporting and investment standards. And that's like a guideline for a lot of impact investors, what they guide, so what they look out for in an impact business before they, you know, they invest. So that can also be a guide what data you're pulling out from your business and how you're using that data to tell your stories across socials, across um your websites or anywhere that any medium that the entrepreneur would like to use.
Yeah. Okay, so communication is handled. Now, how do you we're aiming at social better world, social impact, and a better world, meaning we want to go beyond the business. So we want to drive a change of behavior in the community.
Yeah.
So what's the next step?
Uh, uh, so for me, it's always, this whole process is starting small, ensuring
Right.
that you're meeting the right, you're solving the right problem and providing
Yeah.
the right solutions to this problem,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
continue doing this. Um, Aside tracking your metrics, it's looking at the bigger goal, because it can be when you might not have to the funding. And most times, this kind of solutions need so much more funding than even the regular solutions that are just for profit, right? So it's a long-term game. It's being
Yeah.
prepared. You as an entrepreneur, you're prepared to play the long game, and you're
Yeah.
working towards long-term progress. It's not
Right.
instant, it's over time, which is why that
Yeah.
tracking is important, because when you look at it, then you see a picture starts forming, a story starts forming, what you have done, even if it's just across, a small community, um, which is why that is important. It's that long term, and the SDGs look like that. They're these big overarching goals that everyone is trying to do small things to get to. And for me, the next step is the work,
Yeah.
staying consistent in the work, staying driven in that work, hiring people that understand the mission of the business, um, staying focused on that. And when it's time to scale operations, how are you scaling operations while holding on to the mission,
Yeah.
and the goals of that business?
Yeah.
It's in the work, it's in the everyday thing, everyday work that the entrepreneur and his or her team would have to do. So for me, it's that consistency that would show the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, as the business uh, continually becomes displays rather these best practices, others will
Mhm.
begin to take notice, right?
Exactly.
And then an actual social change will begin to form. And
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the other side,
And
please
and
go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say that reason it's becoming more important to give their money to with their money. Um, it's now a conversation, especially with the newer generation, um, to actually focus on that we focus on that, change our strategy or our operations and see how we can tie that to some good. And
Yeah,
it's in that way people know that their money is being used for something
yeah,
worthwhile.
absolutely. Yes, you're right. Okay, so but obviously it doesn't stop at change of behavior. Now, let's look, excuse me, what's the next layer of uh, growth at that level? The business is now doing well, doing good in the community, changing the behavior of
Mhm.
other businesses. Now, what could be next?
Uh, so what could be next for that business? These goals are they're quite big, and they're
Yeah,
quite they're very, very, and when you look at it, you'll be like, this probably impossible. So it's impacting multiple businesses. Aside change of behavior as to where people spend their money, it is
right.
also impacting businesses around them to take a look at this. And that's the ripple effect. That's the SDGs, the goal
Yeah.
wants to, the UN wants to um achieve. It's supposed to be that's we're impacting everyone to create that impact. And
Yeah.
for us, for me, that's what I see. And I'm honestly focused on that, the it's like people doing good and wondering if they're good. Now I'm talking personally, when you do something good, you're kind to a stranger. What's the effect in the
Yeah.
it's focusing on that little corner that you have, and if you are able to influence to see what other solutions they can provide that can possibly help
Right.
environment or the people. Yeah.
Are you a fan of Stripe, the payment platform?
Yes, yes. I've
Yeah.
heard about them. I've seen, I think I've been once in a while.
What do you like about them?
Um, so it's for me now, I've not really paid attention to anything else they're doing aside providing
Payment.
a payment platform
Yeah.
to use. Yeah. And when you look at what they do and their mission to help, people get access to these monies and help small businesses
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah.
Um, that is their mission. That is something great they're doing because of how difficult. If someone has not been in the scenes for a long time, you would really not understand the weight of growth that a
Yeah.
lot of these businesses have and the impact they've brought to um us as humans and us as business owners, as people.
Yeah.
And Stripe is one of those businesses that have done a lot of good, especially for smaller businesses.
Absolutely. Did you see their recent acquisition? $1.1 billion.
Oh, I
Yeah.
they
They
acquired.
acquired stablecoin. Yeah.
Oh,
I
really?
think, yeah,
Wow,
$1.1 billion, which is their biggest deal so far.
interesting. The fintechs.
So I'm guessing
They're making the
at
world.
your climax, next level of doing well and doing good, it could be
Yeah.
absorbing other businesses and using those to incentivize better business practices in the world.
Better business practices. Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree. And that's where, the start is when these companies come to meet you as a small business, are you ready to be acquired? Because if you don't have the data,
Yeah,
so that's why everybody must have this data, see what they're
yeah,
doing. It's not
yeah,
just business as usual anymore. It's tied to one of these things. And if you don't have the data, what are you going to tell someone or a company that comes to acquire? What are you going to show them? So
yeah,
you're tracking your impact on your profit, your impact on the people, and your impact on the planet, if the planet is part of
yes,
what you're doing. So yeah.
yeah. And it has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be.
Mhm.
And that's why, there's this conversation about the circular economy where people are
Yeah,
shifting from the take, make, and waste model, but are trying to, make sure that you're reducing waste. Are you using recycled products? Are you creating products that can be recycled? Are you taking from another company's waste to create so that, um, things are being, used as it should?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think at this level, the business has, reached all the purpose that it came to the world to serve. To serve. So we should celebrate it now. Uh, um. Okay. So let me ask you other questions. You
No.
you are you are a working mom, right?
Mm.
You are a working mom, and you are still living with your husband. You're not a single parent. So how do you manage all of these entanglements, so to say, of your job, of personal aspirations, of your child's needs, of your husband's need, and still remain relevant and even have time to talk to me?
Well, based on where I not back to work. So I'm still on mat. So I would say I'm trying to focus on improving myself, meeting the needs of my child and my husband. So maybe next year, when I get back to work again, we can have this
Okay.
conversation as to how
Right.
I'm combining that one.
Right. Right. Right.
How I'm
Makes sense.
combining.
That makes
But so
sense.
far, it's been it's been a beautiful and tough journey, and it's
Right.
great. Yes,
Yeah.
I always say
Does
it's
your capacity grow when you have these kinds of responsibilities?
oh yes, because it's at the point there's nothing you have no choice but to grow, to
Yeah.
expand. Uh yeah, it's like I don't know if I'll call it bread. You have no choice. You have to expand challenges that will come, whatever toughness it is, because um for me it's something I've always wanted. And yeah,
Right.
despite
I like that.
the difficulty that comes with it, it's a blessing.
Yeah.
And that's the lens with which I'm looking at it.
Yeah. I agree. It's a welcome challenge.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we have 8 minutes to talk
Mm.
together. So what do you want to tell all the single ladies and married women and married men
Seriously.
and single men who are watching you and getting inspired?
um so for marriage, I've not been married 5 years, going on 6 now. So that's for me, that's not long enough to advise anyone. But what works for me is that I have my friend in my husband, so that's easy, and a supportive partner that's willing to, it's what they call it. There's this I'm trying to remember. Everyone is trying how we have lived, and that's how we're still living. So for it's very key that I have a friend in who I'm going to do life with.
That's impressive. And career-wise, what do you tell them? Final thoughts on their career?
Oh, career-wise, for
Yeah.
me, it's always not to go with the crowd. A lot of
Right.
people are choosing careers now because everyone is going into it. Are you passionate about who you are, or is just, what's the in? Um, because really, if you don't, if you're excited about whatever, even we talk about entrepreneurship a lot and how they're solving these challenges and issues. We don't talk about, career Are you tied? Are you passionate about the mission that the company that you're working for is taking? So for me, that's key. I've worked in, maybe it's a privilege for me to say it, but how my career has grown and transformed. I've not been static. It has transformed into several phases. The end game is managing something, and how I can manage and implement and execute any or anything any idea that is being created. So it's about, so that if you are in the dungeons with that career, the tough days, you of course you it gets hard, but there's purpose tied to it. So I think people need
Wonderful.
to look inwards more and
Yeah,
really
I like that. I
interested
like that. Yeah.
in each other.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's key. Um, the emphasis, the emphasis on entrepreneurship. I feel like, for my platform, we always say entrepreneurship has gone beyond, being in a hurry to go and set up a business for yourself. And I think
Yeah.
that's what you're saying. So if
Yeah.
you work, whether you work in an existing organization or you work for yourself, the principles are the same. I
Mhm.
always I always remind myself, Selamar the devil will not say, "Oh, I'm not the owner of MTN." you know?
Yes.
Yeah. And when he goes home, he doesn't feel less of a human being because he's a CEO and
Mm.
not founder and CEO, right?
That's
So the rest is just labels that society has, or individuals that want to sell books or want to get attention on their social media posts are using. Um,
yeah,
Life is really simple. So the more we simplify it and make it less of a struggle, the better for our outcomes.
exactly.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Zeta. Did you know we have, in the next 3 minutes, we'll be at 61 hours.
Yes. Yes. I've been following the
You've been following.
conversation.
So you will be the one to
I've
take
been
us to
following the
61 hours.
conversation. Yes. That's amazing. That's really
Yeah,
amazing. I
please.
was talking about this morning, and I'm like, God knows, I don't know how you're doing it, but really, you're doing great. About
I'm able to do this because I have a lot of you guys that have positive energy that you're sharing with me. And of course, I
that.
have a huge support system over here. Left alone, there is God knows there is no way I could have been able to do this on my own. Um, just the
Yes,
good thoughts I've
that's
received
good, and
alone is
that's
enough.
very important.
Yes, yes, it is absolutely important, because I had this idea since 2018, you know, and I knew on my own abilities it's not possible, you know. So
Yeah,
I needed the community to join forces with me to get this done. And, you know, I'm so privileged that they've not let me down. You guys have not let me down. So, and I will do my best. I will, I will toughen the backache, the shoulder aches, the knee aches and every other aches. I'll toughen it up until we get to the finish line. So we'll keep running.
we're almost there. Almost there.
Yes, almost
Yes,
there.
we're almost there. Damn, in a few seconds you'll be at 61. So, uh, motivation.
36, 37, 38. That kind of thing. What do you count that?
Yes, I can imagine. All right.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for
Really
sharing
happy
your evening
to
with
get.
us. And we do appreciate you bigly, bigly, bigly. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you,
congratulations.
Zita.
Thanks, guys.
We'll be going on a break and we will come
Bye.
back and keep rolling.
All the
Oh, God of mercy. Why is my water? I'm dehydrated a little bit.
Tell us Africa cannot help itself. Its youth population is deplorable and must be cut down. But how can a continent with the most extensive trade bloc and brightest minds on the planet continue to be infantilized and plundered? The answer is simple. Our education system, the bridge from misery to hope and the promise of progress, is broken. Kids go to school and fill their brains with outdated information and data that has zero real world relevance. And then the administrators send them off like robots to search for jobs that do not exist. 6 years later, they're still carrying CVs from office to office. As a for-youth, by-youth company that starts from all nations, understands these challenges firsthand. And we think the ways in Africa's teeming youth population. the hurdles of finding a well-paying job in today's competitive job market, or an SME looking for globally competitive talent, Ready for Work is your final destination. To learn more or apply for our upcoming cohort, visit readyforwork.africa or call us on 030-280-2935.
As a recent graduate who's still trying to navigate the job space, I've received the confidence boost I need from the Ready for Work Career Accelerator. I highly recommend Ready for Work Career Accelerator to individuals who are still trying to find their feet in the job space.
Ready for Work has been a great experience, very insightful. I've learned a lot of things I actually didn't know initially that I thought I knew. And I will recommend this program for anyone out there.
Hi, Samuel.
Yes. Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ready to go?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. Okay, kindly introduce yourself.
Okay, so good evening, and first of all, I want to congratulate you for this great achievement. I believe it will come out to be a successful one. So my name is Samuel Apiti. I'm the Executive Director of African Youth for Sustainable Development and the CEO for Top Knowledge Media. Yes, so at African Youth for Sustainable Development, we focus on the developmental projects that focuses on youth, young people in Africa. Our vision is to create a platform where young people can share their views on the progress of the continent, and then also suggest on the best way to develop the continent and put the continent at the best position we are supposed to be. So joining the Guinness World Record attempt of the largest interview marathon this evening, I'll be glad to share my thoughts and my expectations on where we should put our leaderships with our leadership in Africa, and also share my thoughts on business management civilly. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Thank you, Samuel. Thank you for coming on. And thank you for the kind wishes. Now, are you in Ghana?
Yes, I'm currently in Ghana.
Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. So
I was in Nigeria last week. I came back on Monday.
okay.
Yes.
All right. No problem at all. Let's get into it. First of all, tell us more about the Sustainable Development Project.
Okay. So the African Youth for Sustainable Development was funded in the year 2019. And the vision is to create a platform where young people can share their thoughts, and they also train young people to take active participation in the development of the continent. We believe in giving the youth the chance to come on board and share their perspective of view on where Africa should be, will be the best way to go, because as the saying goes, the youth are the future, and we believe the youth are to take responsible now so we can have a better future. So the African Youth for Sustainable Development was created in that aspect, to train, to groom the young people to take active participation in the developmental projects of the continent. And we also fall part of the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals. We focus more on the education and the climate change, economic development of the youth. So we do organize a couple of programs and to train the youth on how to be financially independent, and then also quality education. We promote quality education where we create a platform to engage young people, and also send some to the deprived areas to educate those that are living there, because we believe majority of young people in Africa today are not getting the education that we need to develop the continent. Yes, so basically that's what we do at the African Youth for Sustainable Development.
Interesting. How many, who are we, if I may?
Who are we?
Yeah.
Yeah, are Africans. We
No, I mean, you said that's what we do. Your
yes,
team, who are the we?
yes. So that's what we do. The aspect that we have leadership in most of the African countries. So we have leadership in Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, and then we are still working on more other countries. So we work as a team, as a collective team to
Okay.
achieve this goal.
Right. That sounds interesting. How did you get involved?
Yes. So the dream started when I was back in secondary school. And I tried a couple of times to join platforms that focuses on the young people, platforms that are about developing the mindset of the young people. And I joined a couple of platforms, but I noticed what we need as young people is not be given to us. Mostly, these people come and they'll make it look like they are about developing us, but they have their personal interests. So I decided to have some conversation with other organizations, and I formed more on the SDG. So from there, I decided to create an organization that will focus on the young people, that will be at the interest of the young people. So that's when the African Youth for Sustainable Development came about. So it was founded by me.
That's interesting.
Other colleagues who also believe in the dream of we, the young people, taking charge of the continent. So
Okay.
that's where everything.
I like that.
Yes.
I like that.
Thank you.
So you are the you are the founder of the group.
Yes, please.
All right. How many people did you now have as of the time that you said you started in 2019, correct?
Yes, yes. So we
Yeah.
started in 2018, but we got registered by the Registrar General of Ghana in 2019. So it's a registered organization mandate to promote youth engagement and economic development.
That's interesting. Very interesting. Okay, I was curious to understand how many people you have under your leadership, at least in Ghana, and what would you say has been your major achievement?
Okay, I will say in terms of membership, we have over the record for those that we have on record is over 5,000.
Okay.
But there are others that are also there that we don't have their record currently. So what we have on record is over 5,000.
Sounds interesting.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And our major achievement so far is on the financial development programs that we do organize for these young people. We believe Africa can become better when the youth are economically free, because we believe today our top leaders use our burdens or our problems economically to mandate us to do things that we don't want to do. So
like what?
For instance, currently election is coming, and that's happening in most of our continent, our country, sorry.
Yeah.
Election is coming like this because these young people don't have anything they are doing, because they don't have any resources that they are operating on. They end up working with these politicians who end up using them to do all kinds of things, corrupt things.
I see.
And at the end of the day, they will dump them and wait for another election year. But we believe training these people, letting them understand how to make it in life will be the best way for them to stop doing all these kind of things. Because a
But
lot
when you, Samuel,
yes.
when you think about it also, yesterday I had one of my speakers
Yes.
trying to get her name. She and I had this conversation, Jennifer Pierce.
Yes.
She and I had this conversation about how young people almost always become tools in the hands of politicians. And, most times these young people are the ones that go to the politicians and try to facilitate their agenda during these election periods. So sometimes it's not as if the politicians use them, to accomplish an aim. It was because they made themselves available. Don't you think?
I think if these young people are having jobs, are having something tangible they are doing, I don't believe they'll go to these politicians. And it's a trap. And this is what the politicians are using, because they know if they create more job for these young people, they will not come and then seek for their help. They will not come and do it for them. So it's a
I
trap.
agree.
It's a trap our politicians are setting for the young people. Because all these people that goes to them to seek for something and then do the dirty work for them, because they don't have anything tangible doing themselves.
Right. I agree with you.
Exactly. So if these young people are having the financial stability that they need, I don't believe today our current leadership in Africa is a major problem. I think you can bear with me. Leadership in
I agree with you to some point,
okay.
which is the fact that the politicians know that if they create opportunities that are favorable for these young individuals, then they will be busy, working in offices like where you are. They will be looking clean like yourself, thinking of higher incentive. And then it will not be easy for them to manipulate those young people to use them as weapons to disrupt processes and gain easy access to power. But there is another side of the conversation.
Okay.
The other side is there are people who are well-to-do, young people who are well-to-do, smart. They know how social media works. They know how human emotion works. They are the ones that go and collect money from these politicians to design flowery campaign slogans and campaign tools that will appeal to the masses. And at the end of the day, these politicians are elected even when they have nothing to offer. So what do you say about that?
Yes, that's very true. That's very, very true. That's why I'm taking the conversation to leadership aspects now, because in Africa we lack leadership. That's our major problem. Because if and education, leadership and education, they all goes together. We lack leadership and education. First of all, if our educational system is built to tune the mind for us to think in a way of developing ourselves without depending on these politicians, I believe we will not be where we are today. But because them has been designed and make us think we need to depend on someone to make it in life, that's why we are here today. So our leaders, our current leaders, who are our politicians, they notice, okay, this is how the system is working. So they also capitalize on the system to operate on our minds. They capitalize on the system because they believe the young people have not been given the right education, the right values, and the right belief. So they capitalize on it and make us believe we are to depend, we can only make it when you depend on someone, when you go close to these politicians, when you go close to these corrupt leaders. Because I can boldly say, majority of these people that go to these politicians and take money to do this kind of dirty work, it's not like they are not aware. Some of them are aware.
Yeah.
They know that what they are doing is wrong, but they see it to be is not going to affect them. So they do that without any concern about the other person that is going to affect. And that's where the educational system comes in. So we need to create an educational system that make us to be accountable for what we do. Educational system that make us to think about humanity. A system that make us believe that without doing anything dirty, anything bad, we can still make it in life. That's where we have to start taking talks.
Right. Nice thoughts. But you know, this has been an ongoing dialogue. It's been discussed in many places. When you talk to education providers, they will tell you that it's also a function of the human element, the greed in man, the greed in young people, the greed in these actors that we're discussing, meaning some of the politicians that create all those systems and use young people as tools to destabilize processes. So that's where young leaders like yourself come in. If in truth, our society is going to change, it's going to be a function of collective effort of you and people like yourself. And I suppose through what you're doing with the Sustainable Development Project, it's time for you to think of how you can use your own platform to educate and reorient those that listen to you, right? Because obviously we cannot wait for the government to do it anymore. The same government we were waiting for to do it are the ones that are, as you said, creating that system that doesn't allow young people to maximize their potential. Now, that doesn't mean that all governments are bad or everyone in government is bad. It's just a few actors that make the bulk of the wonderful people in government have the bad name. But whatever the case is, a group of small individuals determined to create a change, as Margaret Mead said, can make a significant difference. And perhaps the reason why you are having this conscious desire to see that difference is because you have a role to play. And with 5,000 people listening to you as their president and founder, it gives you responsibility. First, to walk your talk, and then to sensitize them on the right way to live and the right way to engage the system, because you cannot eat your cake and have it back again.
Exactly.
And mind you, you will not be young forever, right?
Yes.
One day you will be an old man and you will look back and remember that there were times when you had opportunities to make a difference when you had this platform. So it's about standing up and, you know, making the difference. Perhaps you are the one to drive the change that you've been complaining about.
Yes.
So, you know, this is a vital moment in history because the older generation are gradually going on retirement.
Yes.
Now we are in a time when there is a pressing need for a new form of leadership, a new generation of leaders. So, to whom much is given, much is also expected, right?
Yes.
God has given you a platform. Yes, you created it yourself, but He gave you the wisdom to create it, right?
Exactly.
So it's time for you to first understand what your values are, and then to concretize that value as your way of life. Then you can use those templates that you've designed to train your people and, you know, help them to understand that it is in each of our hands to create the future that we want to see and our children should live in. You know, we can all pretend like it's not our job, but
Yes.
at the end of the day, it's our job. Martin Luther King was a young man of less than 30 years, you know, when he stood in front of thousands of people and mobilized them into action. So young people have a critical role to play. And all the civil rights leaders, none of them was 40 years, you know, the most prominent ones that we know their names, right? They were all young people. So we have examples of young people that have done it before, and we have recorded history of the difference they made, right?
Yes.
So the conversations that excite me are the ones where we have actionable plans of what we're going to do next, not
So,
what has happened or who is not doing what, right?
yes.
And I suppose that's why you are here, because obviously you have this burning desire, but the next action is to, you know, uh, dissect them into purposeful and well-defined, focused action plans. So that's what I bring to you this evening. Does that make sense?
That's great. That's amazing. Yes. So can I come in?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So personally, I've identified, because I'm more concerned about the continent Africa, and I have identified a couple of problems that we are facing, and what we have to do, because before we move the continent to the next level, we need to identify the problems, and then you capitalize on the problems to make progress. And as a passionate youth advocate, I feel it is time for us to advocate on having a common national development plan, is even if in the country or in the continent. So this is something that is going to help in Africa in a way that no party, because let me focus on the national base. Let me focus on the national base. For instance, Ghana. I know very well per our constitution, we have in the constitution where it stated that a party that leaves, when a party is in government and starts a project and the party leaves the government, other government that is coming in has to, any other administration that is coming in has to continue that project. but it's something that we don't see in our current political system. A political system should be well established. We should ensure that we hold our leaders accountable. So number one, we need to hold our leaders accountable for every action they take, constitutional base, because this is the constitution stated clearly that a party in government has to continue with the previous party projects, which is not something that is happening. So I feel it's a problem because there have been a lot of projects that have been carried out with the previous government, and the new government will come in place and those projects will be abandoned. So the time the past government come back to power to come and continue, which is our biggest problem. So it's time we young people have to advocate and ensure that on the constitutional base, that article has to be fulfilled. And I've noticed is something that is in Africa, not only in Ghana, the whole Africa is the same problem we are facing. So that's number one problem. Second problem is education. Our educational system is a whole problem on its own. And we have to really look at our educational system. Our educational system does not give us the chance to be productive. They are not making productive people. We are rather making a system, we are making it as a system where people come and go. So it's a system you just pass through. When you finish, I've completed school, that's all. But you can't identify the specific material that you are coming out of to continue. And we have tuned our mind to a certain stage that as far as you are going to school, your intention should be you are going to school to get a better job, but not to create a better job, which is a problem for Africa. We have to change our educational system by making the people believe that they are going to school to come out and create a better job or create a job for generations to come and enjoy. The continent, we are increasing. The number of the population in the continent keep on increasing. But when you look at the number of companies that are coming into existence, very low, and rather they are even decreasing. So, and all this is because we are not being trained to produce. We are being trained to come and support. Please, am I making a point?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And I have an idea for you. So when you finish,
Yes.
I have an idea for you.
So we have to advocate for our educational system to be productive rather than being a system where we pass through to come out and look for jobs. So that's why the unemployment keep on increasing in the continent. I can use myself as an example. While I was in school, my intention was never to come out of school and look for a job. My intention was I'm coming out from school to create a job. So while others are in school trying to get the 8 A's and other numbers, I was working alongside to also pass, but passing with a job. So I was in school when I started my first business. I was in school because I have that mindset of being productive. And that's where the problem starts from. We have to be trained to be productive. You have to be trained to create jobs. We have to.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have you have valid points. But let me respond to the first one.
Okay.
You know, the only way to drive out darkness is to turn on the lights. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
So here is an idea. You know, technology has given us liberty to make our voices heard louder than, where we are. So what about if you want to hold the government accountable by demonstrating on the streets? It might work or it might not work. But I have always felt that if there is a tool, say an app, that can help every young person understand, one, the policy in their country in simple ways, two, the budgetary allocation for every project of government in the country in simple ways, and three, implemented projects, you know. So let's say that a budget was allocated to build an overhead bridge at, say, Accra Mall, and it was done by a sitting government. It was, announced by a sitting government. The app will automatically, profile that announcement or allocation, and then track that project until completion. So if you want to hold the government accountable, you have tools and receipts, to be
Yes.
able to say, yes, my government said they are going to do this. And now this is what I see they've done, right?
Yes.
So with that, you can even get more attention than any amount of, anger or frustration. And I think also can be easily scaled across, countries. The whole of Africa, you can use it. Now that you're saying you want to establish yourself as a continental movement, wherever you have your people around, they can duplicate the same process. Now, I don't know, you guys, when you do this, I hope you will bring me envelope every every week, because this is going to be big. If you get it right, it's going to be very, very big. I don't know any country that have done this before, creating an app that helps people to understand policies in their countries. I know there is one for some level of projects, but if you do a complete uh tool that announces every government contract allocation, whatever money that is spent in government, as long as it's recorded anywhere, then that app will capture it. Everybody will have access to it. Everybody will track the project lifespan. Everybody will know whether it's completed or not. Everyone will know the rating on the project. If the bridge is not that strong, people will review it, you know?
Yes.
So then the issue of corruption will be minimized, because when there is that kind of transparency, you know, everyone will be careful of how they use, their allocations and things like that. And that's the smartest way to mobilize, engage, and demand action, right?
Yes.
Um, we, the youth, we are the smartest generation the world has ever seen. Do you understand? We are the internet generation, right?
Yes.
The baby booms, our parents, they didn't have all these amenities that we have, but unfortunately, we're not using it to full potential. You know, we can we can code on our phones. We can use our phones to track everything that we want to track. We can use our phone to document, citizen journalism. You can use our phone to record things that are going on in our communities, to help bring it to the right attention. But if it's just about, I like debate, and I encourage you guys to also think about organizing such forums where young people can come together, and express their views, challenge their opinions, because um the best form of progress is when people believe something because it's true, not just because they feel, oh, I was told that this is right. So if you can't defend your views, then maybe you don't actually understand your views. So I encourage you guys to still have that opportunity to debate, challenge each other, challenge your ideas, you know, and defend the ideas. So I suppose that's the best way to go around demanding accountability from, whether it's from the education system, education bodies, or government agencies, or, you know, private citizens that are serving the general public. If the service is too poor, you know, let people, you know, let people get involved in helping them correct it in the
Yes,
right way, right? So let's put our collective geniuses into productive use. You
exactly.
know, when you start it, you become the catalyst for other youth organizations to get involved. And perhaps you become the leader of those other ones, right?
Yes,
And we'll see how quickly the change you are looking for will come, you know. So
yes,
enough talks. Let's do action this time.
sure, sure.
All right. Well, you have a few minutes left. Would you want to say anything to other young leaders who might see this or who might watch it later on? I'm sure you will share the link with your friends. Not the Zoom link, though, the public link. Do you have that one?
I don't have access to it, so
It should be in your email, but I'm gonna send it to you right here. So
I'll be glad.
just one sec.
So as you are sending the link, let me just give my final
Yeah.
word. So I will be glad if every young people in the continent can actively participate in the developmental projects of the continent, because we believe in letting others do it. If I don't do it, we believe there's someone else will do that. But it's time we all involve ourselves into it. We have a lot of work to do as young people in the continent. If not, the future will still be just as you are seeing it. There will not be any change. There will not be any progress. You will still be in the same position. And the rate of unemployment, the rate of crime continuously increase in the continent. And it's our collective effort to bring an end to all these activities. And this can only be done if we are all participating in the developmental projects of the continent by involving ourselves in the right way to change the narrative about our continent. So I'll call on every young person in the continent to actively participate in changing the narrative of Africa into good. Thank you.
No worries. You still have like 8 minutes though. So if you want to say more words, you can.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let me add on the leadership side. I believe we have a lot of system, and I believe Ghana has the best leadership system in the West Africa so far. And if all of us, all the young people in Africa, we come together and decide on where we want the continent to be, I think there can be a very good or great impact on the continent. And we have to also involve ourselves in taking up leadership positions and then making positive changes. We to move forward, not to also make things just to be like the way our current leaders, some of our current leaders are making things to be, being difficult. And a lot of things are happening around the world. We have to learn from that and then make better decisions and push African for forward. So glad, and I'm the impact that is happening currently in Burkina Faso is amazing. Anytime I pick my phone and I watch the progress that this young leader is bringing into the continent, and I'm so amazed that we have this kind of people in Africa. And if every continent can stand up and have people like this young captain Sure to lead their country, I believe Africa will be at a better place. So I call on all the young people to actively participate in the future of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
So we are transitioning to Darren Hood. Hi, Darren.
Hey, how are you doing, Tom Chris?
I'm great. Thank you very much. You know, I was so glad when you accepted to be with us today. It's such a pleasure for us to have you.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here. I'm honored.
Thank you so much.
You hanging in there?
I'm trying so hard. Yeah, we're doing this.
Excellent. Excellent. Glad to hear.
Thank you. All right. Where should I even start? You're a veteran UX UI designer, and I have lots of questions to ask, but the topic for today is introduction to UX. Let me allow you to introduce yourself, then we can roll.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So hello, everybody, and special greetings to people who've been hanging in there with him with this initiative. Like, wow, I'm glad you're sitting down, man. My name is Darren Hood. For those of you that don't know me, I am a UX professional. I'll address that sometime. Notice the T-shirt. UX is not equal to UI. I know a lot of people new to UX. They're in the business of saying UX UI because they hear it all the time. But I'm here to tell you, there is no such thing. And you want to grow, you one step, you can big step, giant leap is to let that go. Two different things. I'm sure it'll come up during the interview. But I am a 29-year practitioner of UX. I started doing what we now call UX back in 1995. I know that brings back some memories for some of you and no memories for some of you because you weren't even born yet or you were very young. But I started doing UX work before it was called UX. I started doing it in its very infantile days and just fell in love with it. Just absolutely love. I know what it is. I know the value. I know what it offers to organizations. And I just love doing it so much that I do it when I'm not at work. I just don't stop. It's like UX is an all-day thing for me. I've been working in the field for almost 30 years now. I teach at I'm going to be 6 universities in the next 3 weeks. I'll be starting at another university soon. So I teach everywhere. I've worked almost everywhere when it comes to UX and done all different types of UX work. And I'm skilled across all the major aspects of the discipline. So that's sort of me in a nutshell to get us started.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. And so with that, could you please tell us what is this almighty UX?
UX, which is short for user experience. Somebody may or may not have ever heard that acronym before. Let's see the UX on the shirt there. UX is short for user experience. It is a moniker. And some people might be thinking, what do you mean by moniker? What is a moniker? That means it's basically a nickname. To the extent that UX is not one thing. And a lot of people think of UX as this, I'm just going to go and UX this thing. Are you really? And a lot of people, when they say that, you don't even know what they're saying because they don't know what they're saying. And so UX actually, it is a representation of, we did a count recently. Someone in one of the classes I teach actually did a count. I have an illustration. If anybody, I challenge anybody who's listening to go to images.google.com and do a search for Darren Hood landscape of UX, and you will find an illustration. Excuse me. And in this illustration, you will see it says UX right in the middle. And there's approximately, from what somebody told me, 250 things associated with UX: methods, methodologies, techniques, deliverables, all associated with user experience. And that's really what UX is. It is all of these things. So UX is not one thing. It's a whole lot of things, a whole lot of methods, again, methods, methodologies, techniques, or deliverables. And the job of the UX professional is to understand and decide which of those different methods, methodologies, and techniques will help them to achieve their goals and driving what we call the sweet spot between business needs, user needs, and constraints. That's what a UX person does. People think we just make things pretty. No, we don't. Matter of fact, not only do we not make things pretty, no matter what you see out there, and no matter what people tell you they're doing, because a lot of people today that say they're UXers are not. They say they have the job titles, they're getting paid, but they're not really doing UX work. And so UX is about like 90% of what we do is the stuff that nobody sees. That's really what UX is. We make things easy to use. We make them understandable. We build relationships that help things get done. We help with all types of things that have absolutely nothing to do with Figma. As a lot of people say, I want to be good at Figma so I can be good at UX. Well, that doesn't cut it. You can be good at Figma and be lousy at UX. You can be great at UX and be lousy in Figma. So it's Figma is not UX. UI is not UX. UI is a subset of UX. It's only a subset, and it's a very small subset that is dependent upon all the other major pillars of heuristics and usability, information architecture, UX research, and interaction design principles in order to deliver a proper UI. So it's actually possible, Chris, to do UX or to do UI work and never implement any UI, which means the UI is going to fail because it didn't pay attention. So that's what UX is. It's a moniker, it's a nickname, representative of all these different things. And the UX person is in the business of learning as much of those 250 things as they can. And hint, you never arrive. We continue to learn. We never stop. No matter how good you get, you still have to keep learning. You still have to keep refining your skill set. So that's what UX is.
Wow. This is going to be good. This is going to be
bubbles. I busted a lot of people's bubbles, but bubbles need to be burst.
Absolutely, yes, yes. I was looking forward to this class. It's a class now, because absolutely, absolutely. And I think you are beginning something that will be, it might go viral in Africa. So let's see how we go, where we go from here.
Okay.
All right. So principles and methodologies, but we start with principles. So I'm a startup founder. I really want to understand what you're saying and put it in practice. So where do I start? In these 250 things? Yeah.
It's the best way for somebody to start. I actually have I didn't mention some of the places where you can find me. I have a blog, the Kaizen UX blog is on Medium. It's uxuncensored.medium.com. I have a channel on YouTube, the Kaizen UX channel, and you will find a talk on my YouTube channel, and you'll find a blog post on the blog called the UX Cycle of Excellence. And it gives 7 steps of how a person can enter UX and manage your entire career for the rest of your career. 7 steps. The first one is you have to define UX properly. That's where everybody needs to start. And one of the major reasons for that is that, well, number one, it's a good way to learn. No matter what discipline, actually, you could apply these principles and you could do the same thing. Name the discipline, do the same thing. You have to define it first, and then you branch out. Then you learn the fundamentals, and then you branch out from there. And that's the same thing you do with UX. this is extremely critical in UX because, again, I started in 95. There was and I've seen the growth patterns. I've seen all the shifts. I've seen the trends. And prior to 2011, there was practically zero misinformation in UX. Practically zero. Today, it's everywhere. So if you're trying to get started now, you being not just you, Tom, Chris, but anybody, if anybody was getting into UX, the chances of them encountering misinformation is off the charts. It is off the charts. That's why a lot of people say UX, UI, because they think, oh, well, I keep hearing people saying it, and I see job postings, and I see companies saying it, and I see people who say they're mentors saying it, so it must be a thing. Actually, no, it's not a thing. And so now, if you hold on to that for 5, 6, 7 years, you're going to have to unlearn that and possibly have to undo all the damage associated with any misinformation. So misinformation is a big problem. So if you're coming into it, if I'm sitting, and I meet people who are getting started, and I say, this is where you start. How do you define UX? Which a lot of people who've been doing UX for 5 to 10 years still can't define. I don't know if anybody ever experienced that. You talk to a person, I'm a UX person. Oh, really? What is UX? They don't know. And that's not a joke. They don't know. It was 12, 13 years before I could define it. I used to have difficulty defining it. I don't have that problem anymore. So UX is the use of the different methodologies and techniques to find a sweet spot between business needs, user needs, and constraints. That's UX. That's what our job is. And we're going to deliver wins for the business. We're going to deliver wins for the users, and we're going to build the brand of our internal team as well as our personal brand. So the first thing a person needs to do, understand that that's what UX is. If anybody starts there, they just basically set up a garrison to protect themselves against a lot of the misinformation that's out there. Because misinformation, if you build a filter, then you are less likely to be taken advantage of by the people that are sharing the misinformation, which unfortunately a lot of people are not doing that. You don't come into UX with a filter, you have to build it. And if you don't connect to the right people, you're not going to have a filter. So now, guess what? Guess what you're going to be building, and guess what you're going to be watering in the heart of the garden of your own heart. You're going to be watering things that shouldn't actually have any place there. So that's what UX is. And people who are starting up a company and they want to have UX, they realize that UX will help drive competitive advantage, which it will. Companies that are user-centered actually outperform their competition by up to numbers have said by as much as 240%. Those numbers, that's huge. That's a reason to have UX on your team if you're somebody who has a company. But if you don't learn to define it properly, not only will you pursue UX the wrong way, you'll hire the wrong people.
Right.
And if you hire the wrong people, guess what they're going to do? They're going to hire the wrong people. And guess what's going to happen to your product? Your product is going to make the wrong people upset. And you're going to lose your competitive advantage, and you might sunset your company in another 2, 3, or 4 years. So define it first. The next thing you do is, even if you're not a practitioner, expose yourself to, so at least you can be able to communicate effectively if you're not a practitioner. It will benefit you, something we call personal UX maturity. A person doesn't have to be a practitioner to have a higher level of personal UX maturity. The more you understand as a business owner, the more you understand about UX, and the greater UX maturity you have, the less those shysters, I call them posers, retrofits, and upstarts, the less chance those shysters have of landing a position in your company. If your personal UX maturity is low, they're going to be able to do a little song and a dance and get past your defense mechanisms, and then next thing you know, you're paying them to do nothing, which is what a lot of companies are doing today. Most companies, people running UX departments at most companies have the slightest idea what UX is. And that's not an exaggeration. It's bad. It's really bad. So as a person in your shoes, what are those pillars? Heuristics and usability, information architecture. And information architecture is just about findability, facilitating findability, and everything that a person does in the digital experience, even if it's not a digital experience, because UX is not limited to digital, by the way. it requires some type of findability, something that helps to make it easy for them to perform tasks or find information. So information architecture is key. Pillar number 3, research. UX research. You need to have either a generalist on your team that can do everything or a group of generalists. Oh, by the way, not only was there no misinformation prior to 2011, there were no specializations prior to 2011 either. So if you were in UX, you did design, you did research, and contrary to popular belief, we knew how to manage our biases. So we knew how to design something and not become the prisoner of our biases and doing things, wanting the results of the research to come out the way we wanted. We didn't do that. That just started when all of this specialization happened, because a lot of the researchers don't know how to design, and nor do they know how to interact with designers. So, but research is that third pillar. And there's actually 125, a minimum of 125 methodologies, techniques, and deliverables associated with UX research. We only tend to use about 20 to 30 of them for the most part, but there's still a lot out there. And the toolbox is a toolbox. Nobody wants a handyman to come to their house to fix their fence, to fix their plumbing, to install a burglar alarm, to set up their internet if they don't have tools.
Right.
And so everybody who's a specialist of some kind doing something, a specialist in any arena, they're going to have some tools. And so I encourage any practitioners, make sure you have a big toolbox and make sure there's something in it. A lot of people have big toolboxes and nothing is in it. And so if somebody has a toolbox or they keep pulling the same tool out, all they have this big fat screwdriver, toolbox, and all they have in it is one screwdriver. Well, you're not going to get much done. And they're putting on a front. Those are the posers that I talk about. Pillar number 4, and that's the one that people find, UI, user interface, also known as GUI or graphical user interface. Somebody chopped the G off, and I guess it's cute to them to just say UI. But those of us that have been around before, we know what is graphical user interface. And graphical interface is the presentation layer. It's the part that people engage with, the place where you click the buttons, things of that nature. That's where people engage. That's what people can see. That's what they can relate to. So you have the graphical user interface, but you couple that in that 4th pillar, you couple it with the interaction design principles. Because without interaction design principles, you can design a user interface and it will fail. People won't be able to find anything. They can't see anything. They don't understand anything. Those 4 pillars are key. Now, for all the business owners, again, you don't have to be an expert in those 4 pillars, but the more you know about them, the better off you'll be. And if nothing else, if you have to sign off on anybody being hired at your company, you will be able to protect yourself against the wrong people, basically fabricating their way, lying their way into roles and basically stealing from you by getting a paycheck for something that they really don't know how to do. And there's a lot of that going on. And I'm one of the guys, not many of us that are speaking out about this stuff. I'm one of the people that helps protect folks from that by helping you to learn so you're not taken advantage of. I started calling myself recently the big brother of UX, because I'm out here protecting all my little siblings.
Well-deserved title, though. Well-deserved.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Next layer. Now we know the underlying principles of UX. So how do I start executing?
You start executing by first coming into an understanding of what you need to apply these principles to. Where are your needs? So let's say you have a company and you're starting to put together, you're going to build a mobile app, an application for mobile phones. Okay, so you've got your product now in general. What kind of needs? Now, this is when the UX team, it's another thing. A lot of people who have UX teams don't bring the UX teams along in a timely manner. They have a very bad habit of making a bunch of decisions, doing a bunch of so-called research, leaning on market research, which is different than UX research, and then making a bunch of decisions and then roping in the UX person after they've made a bunch of decisions and trying to turn us into what we call an order taker, somebody who just does what they're told. UX professionals are scientists. We are thought leaders. We are voices of reason. We are here to keep you from building things that you shouldn't be building or helping you to build them the right way. We are here to help you to save money, not just deploy stuff so you can say you deployed something and wasting a bunch of money, especially if you're a startup and you've got somebody funding you. You need to make good use of that money. So you want to get the UX person involved as early as possible. So again, you've got this mobile app. You need to understand, you probably already have an idea of who your users are going to be and what type of needs you're meeting in the marketplace, but you need to get an understanding at a micro. Oh boy. Uh-oh. Tom Chris just dropped. Uh-oh, I'm gonna hang on here. The recording stopped. Uh-oh. All right, I guess we're gonna sit here. We're gonna wait on Tom Chris to come back. That's a shame that it had to be victimized by Google like that. Yeah. Hey, Jacob. See, Jacob
Like
still.
100% agree.
Yep. Hey, Jacob still.
Yeah, I'm up next. Hey, we got to talk more.
Yes. Yes.
I've been in tech since about the time you started, so
Okay.
I'll cover
great.
you on LinkedIn later.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. Great.
Let's see. All right, come on,
That sounds
Tom.
good.
But I'm 100% on your page on this.
Let's see it.
Yes.
Come on.
Always glad to hear that. I catch a lot of flack
Yeah. Always
for the
glad to
stuff
hear
I
that.
say, but nobody can disprove it. And I've been
A lot of
loud
flack
for things
for the stuff
for
I say, but nobody
man, almost 14
can
years now.
disprove it. And I've been loud for things for almost 14 years now.
Wow, there's a big delay there.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Wow,
Yeah.
there's a big delay there.
Yeah, I have to see if my internet's going to be okay. I thought I had everything all planned. I was trying to get all set up here, so I'm going to have to see what's going on. But yeah, no, I'm like you. I started in the internet biz like 1994. So
okay. Yep.
co-founded an internet provider in Placer County near Sacramento, and
Wow. Those were the days, weren't they?
Wow.
Oh
yeah,
man.
but
Those were the days, weren't they?
oh, they were, and you just learned everything. And you're so right. I mean, it's like I feel bad for people who are like learning today, because it's like there was something powerful about learning DOS and Linux and all of those things when it was still new, you know?
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
seeing the languages grow and everything like that. So
There he is. He's back. All right. I hope that didn't mess you up, Tom Chris. Not hearing your audio yet.
Oh,
There
is
you
my
go.
audio on? Okay, great.
Is that?
My apologies. Our electricity company messed up, but
Oh man.
we've put on the generator now.
I forgot where I was. So I can answer your question. Oh, you know what? I just remembered. I could dive back in right where I was.
Execution.
Yes. So the person who you're gonna as a business owner, you want
Right.
to learn as much as you can to help you. I was right about there. To help you so that you can speak intelligently to people in the organization, so to help you with hiring. And you do not have to be an expert as a business owner, but you need to know something. Otherwise, if you don't know, and this is coming from a person who's had a business before. I actually have 2 businesses now. You need to understand what's going on and not be 100% dependent upon someone else's skill set, but you do need to know enough to hire for that skill set.
Right.
So, and then I think it goes back, and you actually asked another question. I think I actually just closed off the other question. You asked me another question, so I'll stop and wait for you to repeat that one.
Yeah. So, I have an understanding of the principles, and now I'm ready to put it into practice with my team. So the processes of executing. I
remember that. Yeah, as you're saying that. So you know what your business is going to be. And the scenario I brought up was somebody with you're starting. You have a mobile app that's meeting a specific need. Let's say it's a healthcare related need. You know what your app is going to be. You know what you are trying to address, the needs that you're meeting. You have some understanding, but
Yeah.
everything that you understand at this point is at the macro level.
Right.
And what happens a lot of times is people understand something about what they're doing, but their understanding is limited to a macro level. They don't understand things at a micro level. Enter the scientist, the user experience professional, which, by the way, a person doesn't achieve scientist status until they've been doing this stuff for at least 15 years. So now all of those people that have been doing UX for 3 months, and we see a lot of this claiming to be leaders, claiming to be, I'm a thought leader. And I saw a thing one day, somebody had an event and they've only been doing UX for 2.5 years. The keynote speaker had only been doing UX for 2.5 years. And another person is going to be a speaker, only been doing UX for 2 years. And they were all claiming they were thought leaders. In the way that UX seniority is achieved, you have to be doing it for at least 3 to 4 years before you lose the entry-level title. So they were all entry-level people. So now,
Right.
person, if you as a business owner brings in a person with 2, and a lot of the job postings say this too, we need somebody with 3 years. Okay, you're shooting yourself in the foot because that person doesn't have any knowledge of business unless they came from business. They don't have knowledge of that. They haven't reached scientist level. So now you're basically putting the well-being of your business in the hands of a baby. I know some people be offended by that. I mean it to sound offensive because I want people to think, not because I'm trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I want you to, because when you look at the parallels, the metaphors, that's exactly what it is. Would you hire somebody? I mean, put it to you like this, like people talk about gatekeeping, that gatekeeping is bad. Gatekeeping is actually good. Would you like a person that's not certified as a doctor to remove your tonsils? I don't think so. Would you go to the next door neighbor because they own a scalpel to remove your tonsils? No. Because they're a hobbyist, they like reading stuff on WebMD? No. You find somebody who's certified. You find somebody who's been validated. You find somebody who's been approved. The same thing applies to UX. So you want to bring in somebody, again, you know your needs, you know what your audience is, but you only understand at a macro level. The UX person who has reached scientist level knows how to drive for the micro understanding, which is where every user experience falls apart. It can fall apart at the macro level, but it's more than likely to fall apart. The differentiators, the major differentiators will happen at the micro level. So they understand very small nuances. So that's where the implementation comes in. That person helps you to put together your business plan from a standpoint of how you're going to execute on this product. What if there is a minimum viable product, which from a reality perspective, there is such thing as an MVP. And if you're going to achieve MVP, the UX people will help you determine what an MVP is. Because we know what the V stands for, which is viable. A lot of companies just like delivering stuff to deliver stuff for the sake of delivering stuff. The UX person is going to help you understand, don't do this right now, or here's a priority. You can't roll it out this way because the contrast is bad and people can't read it. We look at that. We know that. When you're close to it, you're very biased and you find it simple and easy to overlook things that a UX person would find critical. So that's how you implement and from a basic perspective. That's how you implement stuff. And you just keep repeating on that. You keep iterating on it and you keep rolling, especially if you're working in an agile sense. You just keep iterating and you keep reaching viable points of deployment and you send it to production, but you immediately go to work on, okay, what can we do to get it better? And you keep doing research to find out, what are our users saying? What are we seeing? And then you go after it and you achieve it and you drive greater successes. So that's how you do it.
Amazing. All right. So what next?
Let's see. One of the things that comes to mind for me is things like those 4 pillars. I can talk about the 4 pillars a little bit more. I mentioned them, but I didn't talk about them at length. So the first thing that comes to mind, the first pillar, heuristics and usability. And a lot of people, that should be the first, I always refer to that as the first thing that should come out of anybody's toolbox. Any UX professionals, of which a lot of UX professionals have no idea what heuristics are. And a lot of UX professionals are very work averse. They don't really want to learn anything. And they just want to, I heard somebody say earlier today, I heard somebody say, if I'm trying to upskill on qualitative research, I can get that done in a few hours. And I'm sitting there going, okay, that's not true. That's not true at all. That person said that they're going to upskill or they're going to level up and reach a point at which they can be competent in a matter of hours. And some people who are experts at qualitative, they're actually studying this stuff for months and years to reach that. It's amazing how people try to microwave. That's the term I like to use. They like to microwave everything. Microwave food and food that comes from a fancy, wonderful chef are two different things. The texture is
Absolutely,
different,
yeah.
the taste is different. You know, I love metaphors. And so it's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to take some trial and error. It's going to take that one thing that none of us like, failure. You are going to fail at something. You are going to come face to face with something that you don't know how to cope with. So you're going to have to learn how to cope with it. I was working at a creative agency. I'll come back to the heuristics in a moment. I was working at an agency when the iPhone came out, at a creative agency, big ad agency. The iPhone came out and like, okay, everything we did was websites or interactive TV or email. We were managing that. And then the iPhone comes out. Now we have to start designing for these apps, which we knew nothing about. So we all had to learn. We had to pivot on the fly. We had to take what we knew, learn how to apply it at that level with that form factor, and we had to do it overnight. We didn't do it in hours. but I found out then that UX is also pervasive. So once you learn the basics of UX, another reason why it's a good thing to learn the fundamentals. When you learn the fundamentals, it's easy to go from applying it to a browser to apply. Now I can apply it to a mobile app, and now I can apply it to a tablet. I had to do that. And then I had to apply it to a handheld cart that they roll around in automotive repair shop. I did that. You learn how to take the same exact principles and how they translate from one form factor to another. So that leads me back to heuristics. So what are heuristics? What is usability? Heuristics it revolves around proven principles, best practices, and common conventions things we already know to be true. We know that contrast needs to be optimal if we want people to be able to read things. So there's a ton of heuristics that come along with that. There's a bunch of interaction design principles that some people don't think of them as heuristics, but they are. Anytime you're doing something and there's an interaction, you need to make things, for example, look clickable. So there's a whole ton of heuristics that we've all been on the web. We've been on an app, on a mobile app. We know when something looks clickable or when we stand there going, where do I click? Because you're not sure. And when you see that, so whoever designed that either didn't know anything about heuristics to help you out, or they delivered information about heuristics. And this is something that makes UX tough. That's why if you don't have thick skin, you can't do UX. We make a lot of recommendations and people ignore us. And this happens at probably anywhere from a 40 to 70% clip. No matter how much of an expert we might be, there's always somebody who wants to ignore what we're saying, no matter how much data we have behind what we say. So you'll tell them, hey, that doesn't look clickable. You shouldn't do that. Oh, I'm going to deploy it anyway. And they do. They deploy it anyway. And now the users are mad and they have options. Users have options. If what you're put out, if going back to that example earlier, if you have a mobile app for use with people in the healthcare industry, if it doesn't work, if it's something that people don't think is meeting their needs, if they're confused, if they're frustrated, if your solution is making them talk to themselves, that's called mental chatter, they're going to try to find something else that does the same thing that yours does. And it will not take them long to find it.
Right.
Either you've cornered the market on something, which is usually not the case. So heuristics means that we need to pay attention. What are the common conventions? What are the proven principles? What are the best practices? And that should inform what we're doing from a UX design perspective initially. Also, if we're doing research, heuristics should inform research because heuristics, again, they're proven principles. That means somebody already researched that. If somebody already researched it, especially if you have a research solution that you pay by the test, or tests are limited to X number of questions or tasks, you don't need to waste one on something that you already know because you know heuristics. So that's pillar one. Usability is simply about how easy is something to use. Paying attention to that. Is it
Yeah.
simple? Is it intuitive?
Right.
Or does it just exist? So,
Right.
and it sounds like you have a question coming to mind. If so, stop me anytime, or I'll just
No,
go on.
I'm just taking in all the words you're speaking, and they make absolute sense to me, because obviously you are speaking from experience and things that you know, and I have absolute respect for people that know their subjects. I just feel like I should be a fly on the wall, but they say I should ask you question.
Oh yeah,
So I'm gonna
definitely.
have to, yeah, I'm gonna have to ask you 5 questions at least. So, do you think UX can be used aside from designing apps and websites and mobile, systems and stuff like that? Can it be used offline, say, in creating a house, organizing
Absolutely.
a space? Yeah,
UX is everywhere.
right.
It literally is everywhere. There is a user experience. There's an image that I like to share from time to time. And like I said, I do UX. I never stop. Wherever I am, I'm at the restaurant and I'm studying the UX of the menu. There's one place. Can you read? Can you make your way around? Is the information on the menu at the restaurant grouped properly?
Hmm.
If you look for desserts, did they say desserts or did they use some trendy word that nobody can relate to? And now you don't know where to find the desserts. Is there anything on the menu that is limited to a certain time frame? You can only order it. You can't order it after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. If so, that needs to be clearly stated. So I'm always studying menus. That's one example. The thing I was about to mention was we went to the zoo one day, a local zoo. I'm in Detroit, right outside of Detroit, Michigan. I'm in Michigan, and we go to the zoo. This is some years ago, and again, I can't stop. Chris, I'm trying to look at the animals. I love going to zoos. I do photography also, so I want to do animal portraits. I'm looking around, and I look at this sign, and the sign said something on the line of bears this way, lions this way, giraffes this way, and then it said restrooms, and it pointed straight down. God help the people who are trying to find the restroom, because that was completely confusing. So that's
Right.
they call it wayfinding. Wayfinding is a part of UX, and we see it everywhere. Hospitals,
Yeah.
airports,
Restrooms.
yes, restrooms. You go up to a restroom, you go to the wrong restroom, you don't know which one to go in.
Yeah.
You don't know how to make the water turn on. You don't know how to. Some restrooms you see people doing this thing, trying to get the water to come out. It's everywhere. UX is everywhere. When you go to the grocery store,
Yeah.
the grocery store is an exercise in that second pillar, information architecture. How are things labeled? How do they name things? And how are things grouped? It's between the two. It creates what they call an information scent. And they said that it was found that people search for information the same way that animals search for food. Isn't that interesting? So you have to establish a scent. I need to know, okay, I can find this book I'm looking for over here. I can find the potatoes over here. I'm looking for this specialty bread. I love eating no carb bread. This one, my favorite in the States, there's this brand called Hero Bread. Love that stuff. Not sponsored. I was supposed to say that, right? Not sponsored. And Hero Bread is just fantastic. Well, how do they present it in the store? Is it that some bread is in the freezer? Some bread is on the shelf, and you'll see a clearly labeled thing that says bread. Where is it? So UX, all of these things are UX. When you go into a coffee shop and you go to place an order, usually go to the coffee shop and they have everything grouped a certain way. But some coffee shops are not that good at it. And they group things in a very strange and confusing way. So you can't go anywhere without finding UX. It is not limited to digital experiences. And the longer somebody's in UX, the more they find that out. I mean, everybody's listening to me right now is going to, if you never thought about it before, you're thinking about it now. Now you're wondering, where can I do this? Or, a big arena of growth in non-digital UX today is when you call a toll-free number or you call a phone number and you get the phone tree. Press or say 1 for X, press or say 1 for Y, press or say 2 for Z, press or say 3. There are UX people more and more, that's called conversational UX. And people work on those trees. They are god awful in the States too. They're awful. You just don't know. You can't even sneeze when some of those things are on because then it thinks you said 2 and then it ships you off somewhere. And you have no idea who you're about to talk to. But yeah, it's just everywhere. It's a beautiful thing. It's sad that more people don't understand UX, which most people don't. And that limits the impact that we can have when that occurs.
Wow. Powerful. Powerful. Wow. Okay. By the way, have you been to Africa before?
I have not been. I have only been virtually, such as now. I was asked to come. I was supposed to come to Africa to do to Johannesburg specifically. I was
Right.
supposed to come to Johannesburg to do a master class, a UX master class. That never happened. I think the pandemic happened shortly after that.
All right.
And in all honesty, I was a little afraid to come because I think you have to get a whole bunch of shots. And I wasn't interested. I wasn't interested in getting a bunch of shots.
Right. Well, now you can plan to come to Ghana.
You know what's funny?
No.
Oh, we got to talk offline about
Okay.
my connections in Ghana. We got to talk about that.
Okay. Wonderful.
I've been connected to Ghana in a non-UX related way since 1998. 1998.
Wow.
During the very early days of the internet.
Right. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay. Well, back to UX. So you have tools and resources that you've developed in this direction. And if anybody wants to access it, you said they can go to which platforms again?
Let's see. I'll try to go down the whole list. I usually forget. Matter of fact, I'm going to bring up something on my other screen because I will forget if I don't. So there's a podcast. There's a podcast. There's a podcast I have called The World of UX with Darren Hood. We just recently, back in March, April or so, we just had our 4th anniversary. We are on right now, episode number 233, just deployed yesterday.
Impressive.
The podcast has been heard in over 100 countries so far. We do not have an exact number. All I have is this one marker that says that the show has been heard in over 100 countries. Anywhere that podcasts are available, you can find it. It is I describe it as a no holds barred podcast. I do not coddle people. I tell you what you need to know, and I do that out of respect for people. Because again, I don't want people to be taken advantage of. I'm the big brother, and this thing is out here is going to get you, and I'm going to keep that thing from getting you. I'm going to help you as much as I can. I'm hated for it. I get trolled a lot.
I don't see why anybody can hate you for this.
And oh my God, I have been pursued. I've had people hunt me down at my job. I've had people troll me locally in Michigan that would just go around, try to find me and just troll me. I've had people try to guess what my email address is and flame me at work, figure it out and try to flame me at work because they don't like something I said. And then the funny thing is, you may not like what I said, but not liking what I said doesn't change the truth.
Yep.
It doesn't change the truth of the thing.
Absolutely.
Back in 2011, that's where, and I was mentioning when we had the little electrical issue, I was talking to Jacob, and I was mentioning that I was quiet from 95 to 2011. You didn't know I existed. Nobody did. I had a presence on social media, but I was just curating things. I find a good article, I share it. That was it. That was all I did. But when I started seeing people that were taking advantage of the discipline. And I used to be an instructional designer. I used to be a trainer, and I was involved in the science behind creating learning experiences. And when I started seeing something, when I got out of instructional design, I noticed some trends, some terrible trends. And so I got out, and I was falling in love with UX anyway. So I went the other direction, from a full-time perspective. In 2011, I started seeing some of the same things that were happening in instructional design. I started seeing them in UX, and that's when I started getting loud. And I said that UX was under siege starting in 2011. Well, you had the posers, the retrofits, the upstarts, people trying to misrepresent what the discipline was. They started saying UX UI in about 2013, 2012, 2013. People weren't saying UX UI. That wasn't a problem in 2007. That wasn't a problem. We weren't saying UX UI. And when you talked about UX, nobody even said UI. That was something that came later. And so I said that to mention with regard to the podcast. I share things so people can understand everything. That's why it's called the world of UX. I'm trying to be all inclusive in the topics. I try to have guests that come on and talk about any and everything. And I try to respect people by telling them what they need to know. And I do it to my own detriment because, again, I get trolled because of the stuff I talk about. People get mad about my podcast, and then they set up, people mobilize against me. I know that sounds crazy, but that's the life I live. At any rate, you got the podcast. I'm on Twitter, Darren Hood, Kaizen UX. Going right down my little list here. Most people engage and connect with me on LinkedIn. I think I'm up to 30,000 followers now, I think, on LinkedIn. And so there's a lot of people, they want to see what I have to say. They ask me what I have to say. People use LinkedIn to submit questions for me to talk about on the podcast. But yeah, matter of fact, I may have crossed, I don't know. I don't look, I don't count, I don't care. I mean, 30,000, but how many quality connections do I have? I don't know. So, but the number is the number, so I get it. I am on Instagram as Kaizen UX. I have a YouTube channel, the Kaizen UX YouTube channel, which the podcast is ported over there. And also a lot of times I get recordings of my talks, and I speak all over the world. I did a master class virtually in South Africa, in Johannesburg, about UX strategy. You can find that UX strategy masterclass on YouTube. I talked about emotional intelligence in UX for UX South Africa. That's up on YouTube. I think I've done 3 talks for Africa thus far. I did a talk for Estonia also that was connected to Google. I did that talk. So I get around a bit everywhere. I just got back from Austria 2 weeks ago. So I get around, I speak all over the world. I mentor people all over the world. Not as people suppose, but I do mentor people all over the world. I have no bounds. I am internationally connected. Instagram, I'm on Instagram. And this little doohickey, this sweatshirt is part of the kaizentees.com, which we're working on international shipping because people keep asking me, people outside the States say they want to get t-shirts, sweatshirts, lunch boxes, caps, teddy bears that say UX is not UI, and a whole host of other sayings that I'm known for are out there on the site. So people can catch up to me any one of these places. I'm really, really easy to find. I do take off the weekend from LinkedIn because I get too much correspondence. So I have to withdraw from LinkedIn on the weekend. If you see me on LinkedIn on the weekend, it's because something came up and I'm only there for a hot minute. I get out as fast as I can just to have some peace of mind. And did I mention that I teach at several universities also?
Yeah.
So between my students reaching out to me and people reaching out to me, and I'm also a doctoral candidate. I'm in the process of getting a PhD in educational leadership. By this time next year, I should be Dr. Darren Hood. By this time next year, we're working at it. As we just finished talking to my coach a few hours ago, just so we can get some other things done and get chapter 2 wrapped up and move on. So that's me in a nutshell. Those are some of the things I do and where folks can find me out here.
Wonderful. Okay, so on that note, what is UI?
UI is short for user interface. It is also short for graphical user interface or graphical or GUI, GUI, which is what people always said. And somebody shortened it somewhere. I don't even know when that started. People just call it UI, but that's the interface. That's the part people are engaging with. If you go to a bank to withdraw money, you're going to engage with a UI. You're going to put your card in. That's part of the interface. You're going to put in your PIN. That's part of the interface. You're interfacing. So interface is a noun and it's a verb. So if you're going to interface with something, verb, you're going to interface with an interface, noun. So anything that when you get in your vehicle, you are looking at an interface. You're looking at a dashboard. Something tells you what speed you're going. It's telling you how much fuel you have. It's telling you what temperature the car is at. You may have something telling you what radio station that you're tuning into, things of that nature. These are all interfaces. And so the UX person, we have to design interfaces so they are intuitive. They make sense. They're reflective of what we call a mental model. They reflect what you expect. And so that way we make sure that you can accomplish what you're trying to accomplish when you engage. But that's what a UI is, in short. It's not this pretty thing. In fact, a lot of UIs are ugly. No, it doesn't keep it from being a UI. Doesn't change anything. But that's basically what people have. That's what
you said. You said the UX person has to design the UI, meaning
maybe not.
Okay.
Yeah, so I jump in there real quick.
Right.
It depends. When early in my career, I did everything because I had a freelance agency, so I did everything. When I got my first full-time UX related gig, I didn't design the interface. Somebody else did. When I left that business and I went to a creative agency, at creative agencies, everybody is in their own lane. So everybody the QA person is over here and the UX person is over here and the developer or the engineer, the programmer is over here and the marketing person, everybody was in their lane. And so we had people, it was their job to create the interface. They took the most we did was a wireframe.
Right.
Equivalent of a blueprint. And somebody else created the presentation layer. When I was at the agency, and I was at the agencies from 2007 to 2011, and then again from 2013 to 2014. And anytime I was at a creative agency, I was never responsible for creating the presentation layer. I was responsible for engaging with the people who did to make sure no UX principles or interaction design principles were violated. In the process, I didn't create it. So some UX people today do them and some don't. And we have a rash of people in UX today coming from the visual design world. And actually, they're sort of taken over. UX today is dominated by visual designers who ironically have no idea what UX is. They know enough to talk, like throw a buzzword around here and there, but they don't really know. I see this way too often. And they don't like interacting with people like me too much because we make them look bad. When we start talking about actual UX principles they don't know anything about, it's almost like you can see the steam coming from their head. They just don't like it. And we're not trying to make people mad. We're trying to do our job. But they want that paycheck. And because a lot of people conflate UX with UI, then the graphic designers get in there. But back to your question though, no, it may or may not be that the UX person does the visual design work. There are many cases where we don't. And the cases where we do today is because the wrong person is actually in a UX job. And so people think that's a norm. It's not a norm.
So therefore, is a graphic designer distinct from a visual designer?
It depends. It depends because that's just terminology.
Right.
Visual design is graphic design and graphic design is visual design unless you work at a company where it's not. So there's so many different companies out here that graphic designers, it means that they're doing visual design work. It means they're it means that they're doing UI.
Right.
And a lot of those people will tell you in a heartbeat. I've been in meetings before, people introducing themselves. Yeah, and if you want some help with the UX, you can reach out to me. And I'm sitting there going, wow, you said that right in front of the UX people. Okay, that wasn't too smart. I don't need your help with anything, and neither does anybody else that's doing the UX work. It's interesting how people choose to brand themselves. Very interesting how people choose to brand themselves. They're responsible for making sure that things are pretty as possible. They're responsible for designing the buttons and the icons and all that stuff. The UX person may or may not. I can. I'd actually rather not. If I had the choice between doing it and not doing it, I'd rather do the UX stuff. But truth is, there's always going to be some degree of UI work that I'm going to have my hands in at this stage of my career. And the way that companies are, because they're so really, frankly, dysfunctional and their UX maturity levels are low, they're going to look for me to do some of that stuff. I can do it to an extent, but more importantly than anything else, it needs to be usable. You can make a pretty experience, but if it's not usable, it's going to detract from the brand.
Right.
And they're going to come back and blame the UX person. So that's where the focus should be. And then let the pretty people do their pretty stuff.
Speak to the argument on product managers being equivalent to UI or UX.
Oh my God. This has been on a rise. This has been on a rise recently where they've been trying to conflate our jobs for years. People have been trying to combine UX with UI. That has succeeded to a degree in their world. Has it succeeded when it comes to getting the work done? No. They're creating so much tech debt. They don't realize a lot of tech debt comes from misunderstanding and misapplying and conflating things. Now they're trying to get product managers to do our job, and they're not going to do it. I didn't mention earlier, UX is an infinite science. It's an infinite science. Any science associated with being with doing project management is also an infinite science, but it's not as broad as UX, in that UX requires and can be supported via a lot of psychological knowledge, input, acumen. You don't have to have a lot of science acumen to do PM work. You just simply don't. But with UX, you do. The more you know, the more you can accomplish. UI people, not so much. They're so busy trying to make things pretty. I also neglected to mention earlier, visual design work and visual, graphic, UI design, very egocentric work. People are married to what they design. They're like artists. And so the artist puts his stuff up at the gallery and they look at everybody come and look at it, and they're so really full of themselves and excited because people are looking at my art. and but UX isn't like that. We do things, and all we're focusing on is the business and the user. That's it. And that's why when people reject what we do, we just off the sleeve, move on to the next thing. So this whole PM movement, it's going to fall apart like some of the other movements. Some companies will do it because they can, and they think that because they can, that it was right. No, you set up a PM to do UX work because there was nobody to stop you. Not because it's the right thing to do, not because when you think the wrong thing that nobody will approve. That simply isn't the case. We need people to have that voice of reason to help us think through things properly, to keep us from doing things that don't make sense. And if you don't have any company, any team that does not have a true UX practitioner in place, that is going to go unchecked. That's going to go unchecked.
What does a PM do then?
I couldn't hear part of it. I'm sorry.
What does a PM do?
They manage the project. They direct traffic. They make sure that deadlines are met. They manage timelines. They make sure if we have a milestone coming up, they make sure that everybody is accountable. They make sure everybody has what they need. They make sure that nobody has any impediments, any blockers. They're managing the trail. They're making sure we're going to go from point A to point B. And as the PM, I'm going to make sure that the path we're traveling is free from obstacles, that we can get there as smoothly as possible. I can provide all the support I need. I can make sure anybody on the team has what they need to accomplish their goal. I need to respect everybody in their lane. That's what the PM does. The PM does not help the team by jumping out of their lane and jumping into everybody else's lane because it's convenient, fun, or because some person above them told them to. It's counterproductive, it's micromanagement oriented, and it's going to actually lead to some attrition and some burnout because the PM is not managing the project. The PM needs to manage the project. Just like the UX person needs to manage the UX and the developer needs to manage the programming and the QA person needs to manage the quality assurance efforts and down the line. Everybody needs to stay in their lane. And when everybody stays in their lane, you don't have any accidents on the freeway. When somebody changes lanes and they didn't turn their turn signal on, or they decided they wanted to be in another lane, and then they change lane just because they want to be in the other lane, you have accidents and sometimes you have fatalities. Now, I know that's a morbid, a morbid example, if you're a morbid metaphor, but it's true. When people don't respect lanes, bad things happen, and somebody pays the price. And I don't think anybody's happy about what happens when that goes on. So I learned how to respect. I mean, I came up respecting lanes. And it wasn't until I had been doing what I call UX work for, wow, I mean, quite some time before I saw people jumping out of their lanes and trying to occupy somebody else's lane. Matter of fact, I started experiencing that in 2011. And there were some people, that's how I started learning about posers, retrofits, and upstarts, because I was the only person in my department at one particular time. Two others came later, but there were people in my department, in a UX department, who did not have any UX skill whatsoever. They were just put in the department. And they were a bunch of thieving jokers too. They were, they did not respect lanes. People were trying to steal each other's work. There was all kind of crazy things going on. But that was, people didn't respect anybody's lanes. First time I had ever experienced that in my UX career. I've had other careers, but in my UX career, so that's pretty bad. So the PM needs to manage the project. Unfortunately, many don't. And as soon as somebody expands their horizon, I know at startups, folks have to wear multiple hats sometime, but the closer that person stays in their lane, the better off they're going to be. And they still have to manage it if they have to do other stuff. But anytime people have to come out of their lane, that's a losing proposition. Something bad's going to come out of that.
Wonderful. Well, Darren, thank you so very much. This has been an expose, for us, and we've learned a lot. And I'm so thankful to you for, accepting to be with us this evening. I know this has been, an exciting journey for you over 25 years, you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's 29 this year.
29.
30 years next year.
We have a platform we call Ready for Work, and we are pioneering training programs that help young people get into the world of work. So
Nice.
if it's exciting for us to discuss further, I'll be happy, to slide into your DM and we see how we can collaborate again.
Absolutely. That sounds fantastic. I love educating people. I love growing people, and I love giving back to the community if I can.
Yes.
Community of UX. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much.
Yes,
Well,
thank you for having me.
is there any closing comments you want to make? I think you have 3 minutes more.
I can't think of anything. I would normally close by telling people where they can find me.
Yeah.
Hey, I will say this, as you look at the content on YouTube, if you like the presentations, please make sure to give it a like.
Right.
Man, that was great, but you don't click like, nobody else knows. So
Yeah.
please help with the we are a slave to the algorithm, whether we like it or not. So I'm asking people, make sure if you like the stuff you see on YouTube, make sure to give it a like. If you come across the podcast and you get an opportunity to rate it, please rate it. Please tell folks. I'm actually looking forward to potentially becoming a content creator full time. If that happens, you're going to get a whole lot of this kind of content. I'll produce a whole lot more. But we need to generate a little bit more of an audience first in order to accomplish that. So in closing, I think that's what I point people out to do. That's something, if people want to know what they can do to help me, that's something you can do for me. If it blesses, if it helps you, let folks know.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you again, Tom Chris.
God bless.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye. All right. Transitioning to Jacob.
Hey,
Hi, Jacob.
hey, Tom, Chris. It's
You
great
look
to
great.
meet again virtually.
Yes, yes. Thank you so very
Thank
much
you.
for your support. Yes. Thank you so very much for your support.
Oh, of course, of course. This is awesome. You know, you're my new superhero, Tom, Chris, because being able to do all this and you know, I know you've already passed the
Yeah.
record and you're still doing this for all of us. So anything I can do to help you out with this, I'll try to stay
Oh,
lively. Darren was great. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have been instrumental in, helping us get here because you didn't have to, but you wrote emails, you wrote articles, and you are here. So thank you very much.
mhm. Of course, this is great, and what you're doing is great. So yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so would you mind introducing yourself so we kick off right?
Sure. I'm Jacob Walker. I'm currently the president of Global University One, which is a micro university. So I'm the sole tenured professor there as well. And what we're doing is being right now both a university and a incubator for social innovation. So that's the focus I have at the moment, and it's been an exciting journey.
Yes, and we'll be talking about innovation in social innovation. What an exciting topic.
Innovation in social innovation. What an exciting topic.
I hope it is. We can get more people excited about changing the world. We'll have more of a changed world.
Listen, what's going on?
Oh, you okay there?
Listen, what's going
Yeah,
on?
we're back.
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, wonderful. I'm also really impressed by all the work that your team has done with this, of prepping, of being prepared. I've worked a lot with many folks in Africa, and just what you're all doing to even have your generator ready and everything else. It's just been great, the work that everybody's done.
Yeah, we put a lot of plan into the process, but sometimes
we put a lot
some
of
minor
plan
things you
into
didn't
the
expect to
process,
happen.
but sometimes some
For
minor
example,
things
the
you
reason
didn't
why you
expect to
saw the
happen.
black screen was because
For example, why you saw the black.
Hello?
Are you getting feedback or something, or?
Yeah, we're getting some feedback. I can hear my voice twice.
Yeah, we're getting some feedback. I can hear my voice twice.
Oh no, okay. I almost had gotten my Bluetooth headset going, but I've done so well with video conferencing with this that I hadn't done that.
No problem. We can continue.
Okay, great. You got some questions for me?
Absolutely, yes.
Get your 5 questions.
Yeah. First off, what is innovation in social innovation? It seems like a complex but exciting topic.
It seems like a complex but exciting topic.
So basically, what I'm talking about here is how can we innovate more to get social innovations to really happen? I mean, we're always talking about innovations in the, technology and things of that sort. But is there things we can do taking from technology to be able to innovate more in the social spheres? Like one of the things that we're researching right now, and this is why I was so excited to hear Darren talking, is we're researching how can we look at other fields that are all about getting people to do things and change their opinions. Let's say marketing or public relations or UX. How can we take the knowledge there and bring it into education? We need to have UX creators, the instructional designers in the area of education. What we're doing with the university is to have it that we have both the education piece where people are earning their master's program and they're doing real research so that what they're doing isn't just thrown away. I mean, so much of education, there's all this work done, and then you get a grade and you throw it away.
Mhm.
What is that benefiting the world? It's really not. So, one of the things of innovating in social innovation, especially from an educational standpoint, is taking this and saying, as much as possible, we want to do real work, real things that are going to benefit the world, and keep the, the fake stuff. Sometimes we have to do it. Sometimes you have to simulate, but try to do that as little as possible so that you actually really have this time that's being spent. And it also encourages students to know, oh, this is not just for a grade. This is something that's going to affect other people. So that's kind of what I meant by innovation and social innovation is how can we be able to take these things that are being done for social innovation and even improve them more using the same concepts.
Wonderful. Okay, so I guess the next question will be, what are the processes? Principle number one.
Principle number one.
So there is a great model, and this is really interesting because as I've been studying different things about social innovation, I have looked at both the way that it's modeled commonly, and also I come from a computer nerd background like Darren, and so I was looking at like how does ICT kind of have their process, and it's really interesting. They align very closely with each other, and this is one place also where, in my experience, I haven't really shared my background, but I've started a few schools I co-founded an internet provider really early on in my life, the first in Placer County here. And then later on, when I was working for an adult school, I was kind of the technical person charged in overhauling its whole business model, and then ultimately co-founded a charter school, which is kind of an innovative kind of school in the United States before now doing the university here. So that's kind of the background, and I see the same thing that's happening here. So the first thing is you kind of are coming up with ideas. There's a process called TRIZ. It's Russian, so I forget what it exactly stands for, but it's a really interesting thing. In the 1950s in the Soviet Union, he was looking at patents that were in the Soviet Union and trying to find commonalities in innovation. And that process, he has like 40 different principles, and most of them don't apply for social innovation, but some of them do. Like, can you do more, get more effect for your effort? Can you do two things at the same time and get more things to happen? Can you take an analogy? Like I said, if we look at what UX is doing and saying, well, how can we use that in education? Another work that we're doing is being able to look at what's done in games and also put that in education. So analogies is another way. So basically you come up with an idea and then you start to plan it. That's really what the students in the master's program are working on right now. And then you work on implementing it, then sustaining it, then scaling it, and then ultimately hopefully having it being part of the system, that it's no longer considered an innovation, just like books are no longer an innovation because they're just so much part of our system. But at one time, the printing press was. If we forget that. We learn about it in history books, but it seems like that's some fantasy world. At least it's always seemed that way to me, but it really was, something new, and totally changed the way we thought of things. So now the one thing I want to say about this, though, that's really important, and this comes from the information communication technology realm, is being agile and iterative. So much of study out there, you try to do one big scientific research and try to answer a question, and the real world is very messy, and you will run into problems. And like he was saying, you're going to run into roadblocks. You're going to have failure, and you got to go back and you got to fix it, and you got to see what works then and keep going. So even though there's these stages are not linear. They jump back and forth. You start to implement. Now, hopefully, one of the things we're doing is we're doing thought experiments. We're talking to other people, saying, hey, does this sound like it's going to work? We might make our own minimum viable products to say, hey, is this concept going to be able, we're going to try it out. We're going to test it in a really small scale. Because when you start to implement, some things you can change. I'm not a huge Bezos fan, but he does have a point about there's two types of doors. Some doors are a one-way door, and you really can't go back. And some doors you can just go in and go back. So you make a choice, you try something, it doesn't work, you go back. The challenge about social innovations is oftentimes they're big things, and you can't always go back as easy. So that's why the planning stage, trying to test things out, makes a big difference.
Impressive. Now, social innovation, do you think it answers to every problem in our society today as is being touted?
In our society today, as is being touted?
Well, it depends upon what we mean by social innovation. So the idea behind social innovation is to have something, and it doesn't have to be a business, it doesn't have to be a nonprofit, it can be a movement or a whole bunch of other things, but some type of system of some sort that is doing better for the world significantly. And I kind of look at it like how science has advanced, in the sense that science normally has what they call normal science. Like if you were, with Newton, they were figuring out how everything happened. And then suddenly you had Einstein who said, no, gravity is not a force, it's a bend in the fourth dimension, which gets kind of crazy. And I can't say I totally understand it, but it totally changed how a lot of physics worked, at least if you're doing intergalactic physics and things like that. So sometimes an innovation really can do that. Will it fix everything? I don't know. I think we get closer and closer to trying to be able to improve things. We can't always even agree on what is a good thing. So I'm not going to say it's a panacea, but I definitely believe that humankind, and there's evidence that humankind has gotten better over time, despite the problems that we have. We live longer in general. We have less murders in general over this world. And my goal is to be able to help out more with that as I can, especially supporting Africa. All of my students right now, we have a cohort of 6. Everybody's from Africa, in Africa, 3 from Liberia, 1 in Kenya, 1 in Ghana, And
Here we are. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, yeah, principle number 2, you've covered principle number 2. Now we're talking innovation in social innovation. Obviously, after innovating, we have to put it in the hands of people, right? We have to put it in the hands of people, right?
yeah, no matter what, I mean, pretty much every social innovation is always going to involve people. That's the social side of it. I
Absolutely,
suppose
yeah.
there could be some social innovations that, are pretty much just for animals, but non-human animals. But I, for the most part, yeah, people are going to be involved. And how much the people are involved, that depends upon the particular thing. One of the innovations we're working on right now that we're researching, which is a very human-centric innovation, and it's not necessarily one that's part of a organization, but is how can we really implement pay it forward to be much more effective. I mean, for a while there was that movie and there was a whole bunch of things about, hey, we can pay it forward, but it's never really done. And that's interesting because pay it forward, if it was really done more effectively, well, you're going to have a exponential growth. Because even if one person then does something for 2 other people and they do it for 2 other, and even if it's not perfectly aligned to go all the way from 2, maybe it's 1.5 or something like that. It's like compound interest. Pretty soon, everybody in the world's going to be able to have this benefit if it's really pushed forward. So that's a social innovation that kind of is out there, but has never been really honed well. And so that's another thing we're working on, is how can we take that innovation that's out there and really make it work? Because something's not really an innovation until it's working. It's a concept, and I believe pay it forward's an amazing concept, but if we can get it to really function, it could be really world changing. Just because of exponential growth, it's a mathematical certainty. It's kind of like compound interest.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And okay, so now the human interface is already established. Now the next step, I suppose, will be, did it work? Evaluation and result. Evaluation and result.
Yeah, and that is a continual process. Just like Aaron was talking about UX, you are needing to continue to test. This is something where, and it's different in different contexts. You might have something that works well in one context, like the classic social innovation example is microloans, especially with Eunice doing that in Bangladesh, and it was really powerful there, and it's been spread other places, but it's different with different cultural beliefs that different people have in different places. So you have to continue to customize ideas when they're spreading. It's not like it can just work automatically. It's there's language differences, there's conceptual differences. So you really do need to not only, you can't just expect something to just be great and work every place. I was listening to a really interesting audiobook about innovations overall, and there was a concept where they're like, we're going to build these merry-go-rounds that kids are going to spin on, and it will generate electricity in Africa. But the problem is to generate electricity with these, you have to do actually kind of a lot of work the kids would have to do to spin it, and it really never caught on because it wasn't as fun for the kids to do it, and they would only want to play on it for a few minutes, and when it wasn't a consistent power stream. So, you have to test these things out. They did a big implementation of that apparently throughout Africa, and just you don't hear about it because it kind of got thrown away, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But maybe there's a way of getting that to work somehow too, better.
Impressive. Okay. So, by the way, tell more about your university and, the work that you guys are doing over there.
The work that you guys are doing over there.
So basically, the university is being developed the same way that I'm talking about. I've been through creating other schools, and one of the problems that I found with most education is once you put certain things in process, it's hard to change. And so following kind of the agile, Scrum is the big thing in software development. I'm not entirely thinking Scrum's the only way to do agile, but I'm a big fan of doing things in small iterations. And so we have an alpha cohort right now. So that means that all of the students, the whole curriculum's not made yet because we are continually looking at, well, how does this work for them? What makes sense? What doesn't? What parts of traditional education, philosophy, for example, when you're doing research, you need to talk about epistemology, the knowledge of knowledge, or what we believe about knowledge. And so, like, how much of that is important because their work is going to be judged by the academics out there, along with how it's functional. So we have, knowing your audience. So there's a lot of stuff that we're doing that, again, is just kind of we are working through it ourselves. So it's not like there is a perfect planned out. I mean, it's more than a plan of a plan, to quote a presidential candidate, but we know the direction. It's all these details that we're working out in between. And a lot of it, honestly, I started this because I've come up with a whole bunch of ideas for social innovation. I'm again, I see so much with Darren. He's always looking around and saying, oh, how can this user interface, well, the sign or whatever. I mean, UX was so much bigger, as he said. I don't want to say that UX is UI, but how can they be better? And I look at the world all the time and saying, well, we have this. How can we use this better? Sometimes I've had some mistakes in how things have been created. I helped co-found an adult charter school, and there was politics. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to get into it. There's a whole News 10 in Sacramento if anybody wants to see about what happened with that. But one of the things I learned as what I felt corruption sunk in there, and I had to leave that organization, was one of the social innovations we're working on is how can we create an organization, especially like a nonprofit, and have it so that it doesn't go away from the founders and the vision that was originally there. Like, for example, that one went much more towards being money making than being helping students. And I'm not opposed to making money, but I think it's really important that you keep your vision. I always say money is your lifeblood, but it's not your heart, right? It's the thing that makes your body keep going, but your heart, that's different than money. So so we're working on having a method of having an empowered ombuds panel, being like a Supreme Court for an NGO or a nonprofit, so that it would have legally binding, being able to make judgments. And when it says something, unlike most ombuds of most companies, if the CEO or the executive director, whoever's the head, says, I'm okay, that's great, I'm glad you looked into that for that customer, but I'm not going to change anything. With an ombuds panel that's acting like a Supreme Court, they can actually be able to really change what's going on. And so a lot of times it also gets into the details, and the details are going to be different. For example, this right here, you were asking earlier about implementing it in different places. If we implement this in California, well, we have one type of way we do law here. with our public benefit corporations, but the same concept probably could apply to Ghana, but your NGO rules are going to be very different. And so how this would be implemented as a concept, and they say the devil's in the details, but I think it's the delight sometimes in the details, in the sense that they're definitely important. Details are definitely important, whatever phrase we want to use, because that's what really makes it work in that context. So so that's where the university is right now. Like I said, it's really a micro university, and we are working on developing these things. And really the strategy that I have with the university is, when we can show that we are producing some things that are valuable to the world, that have real effect, that will give the validity to the university. It'll sell it to the students, potential students, and then we'll be able to grow. I'm not sure how big I want it to grow. I'm far more about quality than quantity, especially in the beginning. Too many organizations grow too quickly with venture capital, things of that sort, and they have to take a lot of shortcuts and change. I mean, you look at Google from the early days of 1995, when it was revolutionary, and when they were talking about things way early on, they were like, we will not be an evil company. Now they're being, having FTC and other antitrust things against them for basically and they got rid of their rule. That was part of their foundation. We will not be evil. Then they changed it to like, we will always do the right thing, or something like that. But it watered it down. Well, at first there was something, and maybe we couldn't all agree on what was evil, but it was far stronger. And they lost that. And the founders, they're probably doing their things now, and they're not there. It's the CEO. And I'm not saying Google's a terrible company, but I'm just saying, when you have to grow really fast, you make compromises. And that's when you're trying to have something that's going to outlast your lifetime. Sometimes that's a valuable thing. I mean, sure, Google's going to probably outlast because of how it's created, but at the same time, there's certain things like, the printing press that outlasted Gutenberg and has had just, things. So you don't always go fast. Sometimes you have to go back, go forward, do both.
Okay, so
You doing okay there, Chris? Chris?
okay, so I'm hanging in all right. I'm hanging in all right.
You have been a trooper. You have just I am, like I said, you're my superhero. This is just amazing to me that you've stuck with this. I am so impressed.
Thank you so much. We'll get to 96 hours. And probably add a few more. We'll get to 96 hours. And probably add a few more. Well, so no, go ahead, please. No, go ahead, please.
I just was saying I was going to cheat and look at some of the other projects that everybody's working. Oh, here's an interesting one. This is one we just started recently, and again, you're going to relate to this, I'm sure. Which is, I was trying to mail. I work with a fellow in Uganda, and he really needed a new smartphone. His had broken, and so I had some spare ones, and I just wanted to ship them to him. And it was crazy, because if I went through like a shipper like FedEx or DHL or any of those, it was going to be hundreds of dollars just to send this small package. And then I just, luckily we have the United States Post Office, and they'll send it for like $40, which is much more reasonable. But the problem is that they won't send lithium-ion batteries. So it's like, okay, I can't even send this to him unless I'm paying hundreds of dollars. And what's the point of sending some slightly older phones for that? So And then, of course, there's all the duty taxes that, if I kept it under a certain price range, they wouldn't have to pay duty. But each of African country has its own rules, and not every official in every African country is always honest. Also, sometimes they're trying to, get more stuff when things come in. I don't want to paint a broad brush there, but it does happen. So one of the things I thought about is I'm like, we have there's a huge diaspora of folks, from Africa in the United States and around the world. And many of these people, want to fly back home to their country relatively often, maybe once a year or something like that. But there's enough going back and forth that could we build some kind of crowdsourced platform that would allow people to say, hey, I want to ship this to my cousin back there, and basically building up. One of the challenges, of course, is trust. I mean, there's a whole bunch of potential problems to this, and we haven't worked all those out yet. So I don't want to say this is a complete answer, but is there a way that we could be able to kind of build trust? Like, okay, if you take this here, you earn a point, and then somebody else will be able to take something for you later. And as you keep doing that, then people can take things to a country that they're flying back to. Now, there's also the last mile problem. Some countries have good internal post systems, so that they could probably just take it on the airplane with them, take it over there. There's a question of duty, and I believe that if this is not something where you're charging for it, that you can legitimately say these are gifts. I mean, I think that's important. This would have to not be something like a air mule service. There's those out there too, but this would be really just try to be able to get more resources, especially into Africa. I mean, it could be for any developing country or place, but I really feel, I don't know, my heart is really, even though I've never been to Africa, of course you can see I'm not recently descended from Africa, but I believe we're all descended from Africa. Genetics show that very clearly. That I care a lot about wanting to see what can be done. And so that's one of the innovations we're working on right now, actually as a full class project of looking at how we can do social innovation is, can we be able to reduce the cost of getting things back to Africa using the diaspora who are already flying back and they had a small package in their bag. I'm not talking about big things, but I'm talking about things getting to family or some small humanitarian aid. I wanted to get a diabetes meter to somebody else in Africa. And again, it was a big pain to do. Thankfully, he didn't have a lithium ion battery, so I was able to ship it with the post office. But so, yeah, these are some of the ideas that we're working on. I just recently, there's a great gal named LK. She might be watching right now. And hopefully I got her name right. I said, how do I pronounce it? And she said, whatever. So I'll just pronounce it that way. But she is working on having a way of educating women and girls in Afghanistan, and having a way that when if they're able to come here to the United States, and I'm a big believer that the United States owes Afghanistan something. I mean, I don't want to get into the politics of it, but there were many people who helped our military for whatever we did right or wrong. But there were many people there who did that. And while our men and women who were in Afghanistan risked their lives, the interpreters and those who were supporting us risked their lives and their families' lives. And so I really have a deep belief of trying to be able to support this. And so this whole sister school idea of being able to have a school here in the United States and a school there, and have those being able to collaborate. And again, and there, of course, is a lot of challenges there. We got a whole thing called the Taliban, and girls aren't supposed to learn anymore. So you have to keep this thing secret. And how do you do all of that? And I'm not going to go into all the techniques because this is being recorded. I don't want to tip anybody off in the Taliban, but not that they probably are watching this, but you know what I'm saying. I just that's another really interesting thing that we're looking at being able to support and really make a reality.
I think that's amazing. I like the idea of using the African diaspora to send packages, lightweight packages back home. And of course, incentivizing them by giving points they can redeem whenever they also have a package of their own. So I think that's smart.
That's smart.
Yeah, it's one of the principles that you're asking about, you know, where social innovation comes from. I'm always a believer in, again, more effect for the effort. So if something's already going that way, why can't we harness that? You know, just like people have harnessed renting out their homes for, you know, Airbnb in the United States and actually across the world. Again, this would not be commercial. I think that it would be really important that this was not commercial. It was more like a Craigslist, but it would have to be well ran and would have to have rules, and it would have to have things like insurance. So it would have to have ways of generating money, even if it wasn't charging the people who were part of it. So there's of course, all kinds of challenges, but that's the beautiful thing is I love working on challenges. I love having students who are enjoying working on challenges and saying, what can we do to really make this a better world? And I thought that one about the diaspora would touch home for you, because I'm sure that's an issue. And actually, I'm going to be talking to, there's a person in from Ghana. He's in New York, I believe. I just read about him in The Economist not too long ago. He solved this problem a different way. He has an app that if you want to send a birthday cake to somebody in Ghana, you can use his app from the United States, and it already has vendors in Ghana that you can just pay them and they'll deliver that birthday cake. Because of course, shipping a birthday cake would cost a whole bunch and probably not taste very good once it arrives. So that's another thing, and looking at how other people are doing these innovations. I'm going to see if maybe we can build off of the platform he may have. That might be a good way. It might not. There's a lot of open source stuff out there, so we will have to see what we're going to use when we do this, and what kind of financial backing, and how we start that up that way too.
Yeah. Our life. Our life.
You can do this. You can do this, Tom, Chris. You've been such a trooper. Again.
I can. Yes. Let's go.
I can. Yes. Let's go.
So does
So
anybody have
I can start to share some of the other innovations or yeah.
No, I was asking my guys if anybody has a question on innovation or social innovation, I can send through to Jacob.
Yeah, if the audience, you know, anybody watching wants to send in a question, that would be great. I asked my students to see if they would watch this, but I told them I would, you know, it's being recorded also, because
Yeah.
all of them are in Africa. I know it's late midnight right now where you are. So
let me check the website. Let me check the website. The count is accurate, correct? Correct.
And actually, Tom, Chris, I'm going to tell. I while you're looking there, I'm going to tell you about another innovation that we are working on with this first cohort, that I think could be exciting. Although, again, one we have to be careful on. There's a lot of potential pitfalls, but when you're running an NGO, at least in the United States with our nonprofits, nobody actually owns that NGO. Now, this is different in each country, how their rules are, but getting funding can be a challenge. I mean, you're doing a great job of having this, world record attempt to get more scholarships. And I want to give a shout out for anybody who's watching right now. I'm going to be sending over a scholarship from the university for you all. I want people to do that also, because I think what you're doing is so valuable for helping out the young folks of the world. But it's hard to get money. You might try for grants, but there's all these grants everybody's trying for. So one of the things we're looking at is, could we adopt something similar to equity, like selling stock? But you can't sell stock as an NGO. And you have to be careful also, because a lot of laws, at least in the United States, say, well, you can't have people own this. It can't be for a person's benefit, a specific person's benefit. It has to be for the public good. But what we're looking at is, could we devise a method of selling future revenue? So, for example, with the university, we will have tuition right now. Right now, everybody's being able to I'm actually paying a stipend to everybody who's on a full fellowship. And we're going to have full scholarship. So it's really great that way right now. But someday we will be generating income and having tuition. So the question is, could there be a method that this NGO could be able to sell future revenue to others, to investors, so that as revenue happens in the future, they would be able to continue to benefit. And I specifically would think this might be valuable for those in the United States who maybe would use this for retirement, where maybe like for this venture, it's going to be several years until we really have real income coming in. I don't want to go to venture capitalists, but somebody who has a retirement account, this could really be able to put money into that retirement account as it starts to generate money later on. There's other nonprofits that do have ways of generating money. And so if you're able to get upfront capital, sometimes that's really valuable. So that's another way that we're looking at being able to have an innovation, kind of a very specific one, but one that could benefit many NGOs throughout the world, of being able to get some more upfront capital without a grant, without donations. But it does require having some kind of revenue stream later. So which some nonprofits have and some NGOs. And I use nonprofit, NGO the same. In the United States, we say nonprofit. Every place else in the world, they say NGO, right? So that's another one.
I think you have a question on the website.
So are there any questions from the audience?
I have a question on the website.
Yeah. So Christine Zoabi, he says, I love the idea about your school. How can the communities of the world help your school?
I love the idea about your school. How can the communities of the world help your school?
Well, thank you, Kristen Zabi. I think right now the big thing is, I'm just wanting to get the word out there about what we're doing. As we get some methods of being able to generate revenue, maybe consider investing in a revenue participation with the organization. We take donations, of course, also, but right now I would really rather, as we're in our starting phase, I'd really rather any donations go to what you're doing, Tom, Chris, because you have a direct thing you're doing right away with folks, and I do. But so those are ways, get the word out there. That's a way of benefiting us. So I appreciate that question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, here's another one. Let me go ahead, since I know I got some time, and this way you don't have to think about other questions. Yeah. This is one that I think could be very valuable to Africa. Is is the concept of what I coined this term actually in 2008. I call it virtual onshoring. It's a terrible term that I created. It doesn't work well. My UX is not great with it, but I'll explain it real fast. That, you know, at first in the United States, we had a lot of things that were, of course, manufactured here, and then manufacturing got offshored to many other countries, and that started to develop. I mean, China really benefited from doing that. And then intellectual goods started to get offshored. Like India has really benefited from doing programming, development work, things of that sort. But this was all done really by big companies sending it to other big companies. And then the people who were doing the work, yeah, they were being paid more than others, but they didn't have as much control. But one thing about the internet is really, it is like what Marshall McLuhan said about the global village. We have, like right now, Tom, other than lag, I couldn't tell you're in Ghana, right? You're just there. You got this professional studio. To me, you'd just be like next door. So the concept of virtual onshoring is saying, how can individual businesses sell intellectual goods from a developing country nation to a more developed economy like the United States? And after I coined this term in 2008, this actually started happening. You had things like Fiverr. But the problem with Fiverr is it's a middleman, where originally Fiverr was like, they're called Fiverr because you'd only pay $5 for whatever you wanted, which wasn't really benefiting as well folks in developing countries. So we're looking at how could we have virtual onshoring being something that really could allow people from all over the world to sell goods just as if you were next door, so that you know, you wouldn't, and that would give that entrepreneurial fashion. And again, I think this is where Africa could really do this. I mean, one thing that you have is you have far better mobile internet and mobile connections than almost any place else. You also have mobile money, far better than most of the world. And even when your power goes out, usually the mobile phones still work. I wish the power was better. I know that goes all the way from Ghana to Liberia to Zambia to all across the country, not country, all across the continent. So that's another thing that could be done where, you know, how can we have people pull themselves up by their own bootstraps? I'm a real believer in some of the American dream. I might be a little, people say, well, you know, aren't you more cynical? But I believe the American dream is a human dream. I really believe that when the Declaration of Independence basically said all humans are created equal, that's valuable. And that's what our country should be founded on. And if we take that as truth, then we should do whatever we can to be able to help out folks who are just as deserving as us, but are not in a system that gives them as much opportunity. And so a lot of the things about the social innovation is to provide opportunities, like with virtual onshoring or with the diaspora delivery, to be able to do these things, to be able to get more resources in an ethical manner for folks who really could be able to leapfrog into such at least financially, you know, better. And I'm not saying that money's everything. You lose some things with that too, but that's really a big focus of what we're doing.
That's so cool.
Any other questions from the audience?
Checking.
Awesome. And I apologize. I get so excited. I speak so fast. I'm going to tell a little story here. about teaching. And I was teacher of the year actually once with my school, which I was very proud of. But it was, people sometimes ask about what makes a great teacher, and again, it's very contextual. So I was teaching computers, and I had another instructor, wonderful instructor, Steve Jensen, and he was originally from Russia. You couldn't tell from his name, and very very American in philosophy he was, but still is, I'm sure. But what was interesting is we had a lot of students who were immigrants in our classes. These were adults, and we also had a lot of students who were born and raised in America. And I would get students come to me from his class and say, Steve Jensen's so slow, and you're so exciting. You're always bubbly. Can I join your class? I'd be like, of course. But that didn't mean I was always the better teacher, because then some of my students would go to him and say, Jacob's so quick, I can't understand him. He's so talking so fast. You are so detailed and go step by step. Can I join your class? So who was the better teacher? It depended upon the student. It was really both of us. It just depended upon what the needs of the student is. Yeah. And I think that's a social innovation we need to have. I mean, we have customization throughout our society now. You can customize everything except school. We're still stuck in a grade level system, which was designed. I mean, grade levels are only about 150 years old. It started with the Industrial Revolution. Before that, you didn't have a grade level. Now at least in the United States, you can't, people say, well, grade your kid in. They can't even consider it, but it was all about an assembly line. Grade levels are just an assembly line, no customization. Can we break out of that somehow? Have other means of being able to say, okay, I'm really up here with math, but maybe with my language skills, I'm not so far. And then be able to have customization instead of trying to make perfect widgets out of every child that's in the world at each grade level. There's another concept. Sometimes innovation means looking back at the past and saying, okay, can we adapt some of that now? Because now we have more personalization. How are we going to use AI? Of course, that's a big one. And I don't have the answer. I know you've had some great guests. I've been watching some of your interviews as where I can. Nobody. If somebody says they know what AI is going to be able to do, they're lying. We don't know. We are holding on for dear life as we do this and trying to figure out how we use it ethically. I mean, I work with my students on saying, how can we use AI to be able to improve social innovations, our thinking process? That is one thing where I have found like ChatGPT is great. It's great for brainstorming. It's great for, like, if I want to come up with a backronym, like I have something I want to say, and I have a word that doesn't work very well, let's say virtual onshoring, I could throw it to ChatGPT and say, okay, what are other terms I could use that might work better? And then it can come out with a term that maybe will be able to be more easily understood or things like that. So that's some place where there's innovation. Yet at the same time, we also live in a world of misinformation. If we're having so many problems of just agreeing on truth, like say in the United States, between different groups of us, how much harder is that? Are we prepared? Is our consciousness at a stage? And this is why education is just so critical to me, because I feel that with the misinformation that's out there, that is a total failure of our education system, of not being able to be real critical thinkers and figure out what is truth and not just believe it because our friend believes it. That's a hard one. That's a really hard one. And trust, again, nobody's cracked that one. And on the internet, people do things like ratings, but people game that. So figuring out how to be able to develop real trust, that's one I'm hoping to put some thought into in the future, because it's going to be important for any of the social innovations we're working on.
That's amazing.
You want to jog around a little bit, Tom?
That's amazing.
Chris? You can do this.
Yes, I can.
You can do it. You're doing it.
Yes, I can.
Yes,
Yes, you can.
yes, I can.
Yes. Yes, I can.
Yes,
And
you can.
thank you so much. You know, you've shared wonderful ideas
And
with us
thank you
this
so
evening.
much. You
This
shared
morning.
wonderful ideas with us this morning.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. Again, thank you for doing this. Thank you for staying awake for having this interview with me and everybody else. You know, I know that it's not easy. I again, you're my superhero on that. So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
All right, we still have a few minutes on your clock.
All right, we still have a few minutes on your clock.
Sure. You know, here's one that we're working on in an upcoming cohort, and it would be something that those watching thinking about this maybe in a different way. We know malaria is a huge problem in Africa. We know there's more medicines that are being created. Are there other bottlenecks of being able to stop malaria that maybe really haven't been done yet, that doing something like in how it's presented, maybe marketing nets, or I don't know what the bottlenecks are, but I really believe that there's probably something untapped out there that if we did something a little bit differently, we could save a lot of people from getting malaria, which kills way too many children. And practically everybody I know from Africa gets malaria way too often. And it makes them feel terrible. It can be life-threatening as an adult. So that's one of the things where we don't have a solution yet, but that's one of the ones that we want to be tackling in the university, is really how we can be able to do something, even if it's a small something, because even if you make a 1% improvement, 1% of the lives in Africa of not getting malaria would be huge. And it's not just Africa, but I know it's a major problem throughout Africa. So, I just talked too fast. I'm kind of like Darren on that. I need to get together with him after this. I told him that brief break you had, we were both on the Zoom call briefly, so I talked with him briefly. Great guy. Me and him are so much on the same page on so much stuff. So. So Tom, Chris, what could we do for you? What would be good for, not for you specifically, but for the work that you're doing? You are doing great work, and I have lots of folks from America on this visit right now. I hope I invited all of them in this world record attempt. So why don't you share a little bit about what you're doing? I know it's really late, but this will get your brain going, and share a little bit about what you're doing, because you're doing great work, and I want to give you these 3 minutes to do that for this audience.
Yeah, sure. We are mobilizing scholarship for our young people, our underprivileged youth, 100 of them, going through Ready for Work. Ready for Work, our workforce readiness program for early career professionals. So what you can, how you can support is to donate as much as you can to the scholarship fund. And every donation that goes in there will be utilized to, help these individuals gain the skills that will help them to become part of the global workforce. And of course, if you have content that you've designed that will be relevant to this, group of individuals, that will be wonderful. Would be happy to upload it to our website to use it to train them. We have a partnership with companies like Visa. So yeah, those are the two areas that we are actively seeking support right now.
That is great. And yeah, as we make more further stuff on the virtual onshoring, especially, I would love to talk with you and the diaspora delivery. You know, we're going to need to have alpha testers and beta testers out there. So maybe we can work some more on some of those things and get your students involved in some of this. The other thing is that I've been very blessed to have a strong LinkedIn network with great people like yourself. But we can talk more later. But if I could introduce you to somebody or something like that in my network, I'd be happy to do so. So,
Yep.
I think we're just about at the time. The next person's hopefully queued up. Who's coming next?
Well, we'll have 15 minutes break. Yes. When we come back, we'll roll into the next session.
We'll have 15 minutes break. When we come back, we'll roll into the next session.
That's great. Don't fall asleep on your break, or if you do, make sure you wake up.
Yeah, I know. All right. Thank you so much.